Chapter 118. When Prince Rong led his army to wage a 3-month war with the Longmu Empire, Nian Bing, who was in the Huarong Empire, had no idea what was happening. He was still trying his best to rescue Feng Nu, but it could be said that his efforts were in vain. Clouds and mist drifted in the air like smoke. Along with a gentle breeze, it brought a bit of moisture to the mountaintop. After the mist and clouds dispersed, the bare mountaintop was revealed. In the middle of the mountaintop, Fatso was sitting on the ground, chewing something in his mouth. Sigh. I've already eaten my last drumstick. Why isn't that guy here yet? He's not purposely keeping me in suspense. It's really not easy to eat a big meal from him. Heavens, why can't he be a woman? If that's the case, I'll make her my wife, even if I have to risk my life and let her comfort my stomach every day. As he spoke, Fatso used his oily hands to rub his stomach. His face was full of lament. However, when the lament appeared on his fat face, it looked very comical. Fatso, you're daydreaming again. Do you think that I can't beat you this time? As long as I win, you'll have to return Feng Nu to me. The low voice sounded like it came from the depths of hell. 7 brilliant lights floated over, and with a soft ding sound, the Big Dipper's 7 stars landed 3 feet in front of the fatty at the same time. There were 7 sabers, but only the hilts were exposed. At the end of each saber, there was a resplendent gem of different shapes and colors embedded in it. Blue, red, green, yellow, silver, white, and black. The 7 colors intertwined and immediately covered the mountaintop with a layer of dense treasure light. This was no ordinary treasure light. Instead, it was a special barrier that fused 7 magical elements. Unless the spellcaster was willing to do so, or the 7-color gem that powered the barrier was completely destroyed, no one would be able to touch these 7 swords. Fatso clapped his hands and laughed. Good, good. The treasures are all here. Kid who uses treasures, come out too. Hurry up and show me what you got this time. If you can beat me, I'll return Feng Nu to you. Otherwise, as usual, give me a full 7-element feast. Fatso, be careful. This time, I'm afraid that not only will you not be able to eat the 7-element feast, but you'll also lose your life here. In the clouds, a figure dressed in gray clothes slowly walked over. It was Nian Bing. He did not look at Fatso. His eyes were fixed on the 7 gems, as if they were everything in his life. 3 months had passed. Nian Bing's perseverance slowly. Every 10 days, he lost, fought. At the beginning, he had no ability to resist, but now, Fatso was fear. In these 3 months, his strengths, and his. But he deeply experienced the wonders of the Tian Yin acupoint. It was indeed something that the innate domain could not compare to. In these 3 months, every 10 days, Nian Bing would have to experience a difficult battle. His battle with Fatso had become a pattern. Every time, he would attack with all his strength first. Fatso used all kinds of methods to resolve it, but when he found that he couldn't break through Fatso's defense, he could only admit defeat. The result of admitting defeat was to cook and make all kinds of delicious food for Fatso to eat. With constant contact, Nian Bing was surprised to find that Fatso had a deep understanding of food. He would often give Nian Bing all kinds of suggestions. His suggestions were not nitpicking, and each time, his suggestions were right on point. He was simply a senior gourmet. His suggestions constantly improved Nian Bing's culinary skills. After the ice and fire 9 heavens cuisine, he finally created the 7-element feast. Nian Bing didn't expect his culinary skills to improve. But what made Nian Bing suffer was that every time he finished cooking for Fatso, he would be baptized by Fatso's heavy punches. Then, he would be beaten down by Fatso and enter the innate domain to cultivate. Although the cultivation was wonderful, it was not comfortable to be beaten up every 10 days. Fortunately, Fatso's beatings didn't bring any real harm to him. The fatty chuckled and said, "That will depend on your ability. You must know that Fatso will risk his life to eat. The so-called shredded meat is precious, and the price of meat slices is even higher. If there is a big piece of meat, both can be thrown away. Come on. I think the oil in my stomach is enough to play with you for 1 round." Nian Bing sighed and said, Fatso, why do you have to make things difficult for me? Give me back Feng Nu. If worst comes to worst, I will continuously cook 7 types of dishes for you for a month. If you don't let me see Feng Nu today, even if I have to risk my life to use life magic, I will make you stay here. It's already been 3 months, but you still haven't let me see Feng Nu even once. Today, I will risk my life. Fatso pinched his chin full of fat and said, that won't do. If you don't have the hope in your heart, the food you cook will taste worse. After tasting the last one, how can you let me eat the next one? To tell you the truth, your innate talent is the best among all the people I have seen. With a human body, you can practice magic to such a level. Fatso really admires you. Kid, do you think you can use life magic in front of me? Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, it's not like you don't know that I practice magic not to become a mage, but to be able to make more delicious dishes. Moreover, I can only use spells of the 8th step at most. Using spells of the 9th step is already very taxing on me. Fatso shook his head and said, it's not the same. Although you can only use spells of the 8th step, your control and understanding of magic is something that those so-called archmages can't compare to. Let me ask you, who among them can achieve the same origin of ice and fire, and use the same origin of ice and fire to stimulate the other magic elements to drive the wind, earth, space, light, and darkness magic elements? Although you are only a support mage, you are the first all-element mage in the whole continent. I remember that they call you Ice and Fire Chef. Indeed, your strength lies in ice and fire. This title is most suitable for you. Moreover, what I don't understand is that the speed of your magic improvement is very fast. It is reasonable to say that you should already be able to use higher level magic. How can it be maintained at the same level? Today, I have something delicious to eat again. Nian Bing's cold eyes flashed, and she said with a frown, if that's the case, we still have to fight. Do you want to know why my magic is still stuck at the same level? I only understood it these past few days. Fatso, today I will let you see the qualitative leap in my magic. Fatso laughed. Of course, I am still waiting to eat your 7-element feast. Just like before, I will give you time to chant the incantation. Move your mouth. It's not bad to move a bit before the meal. You seem to have put on quite a bit of weight recently. Let's see how much your qualitative leap will affect me. Nian Bing's gaze changed and became abnormally persistent. From the beginning to the end, he was afraid that his gaze would stop on the 7 exposed gemstones. We have known each other for a long time. I have never introduced you to the guys I eat with. They are my closest friends. Fatso said with some curiosity, yes. I have never heard you mention them before. These 7 blades are stranger than the one before. Tell me about them. The golden-haired youth's eyes shone with infatuation. Sigh of the snow goddess, morning dew. With a light hum, a blue light suddenly bloomed, and the ice element on the mountain peak became stronger. Roar of the fire god, righteous young blade. Red light. This was a divine weapon representing fire. Chant of the wind of freedom, proud heaven blade. Green light. This was a divine weapon representing wind. Melody of the earth's awakening, long life blade. Yellow light. This was a divine weapon representing earth. Hexagram of the 100 changes, Xuanji blade. Silver light. This was a divine weapon representing space. Dawn that connects heaven and earth, holy radiance blade. White light. This was a divine weapon representing light. Curse of the eternal hell, demon devouring blade. Black light. This was a divine weapon representing darkness. The 7-colored light suddenly bloomed, interweaving into a gorgeous rainbow of colors. The golden-haired youth. The book already introduced him as Nian Bing. I don't know why the author still mentioned him here and in front. With a smile on his face, he looked at the 7-colored light and said, they are the 7 divine weapons. They are the 7 divine blades, and there are also magic staffs that contain the 7 elements of ice, fire, wind, earth, space, light, and darkness. Most importantly, they're my kitchen knives. The smile on Fatso's face suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a serious expression. He could clearly feel that Nian Bing's aura was clearly different from before. A layer of faint golden light appeared on his body. That was the peak of Do Qi, God Do Chi. His upper body slightly leaned forward, and his fat body was wrapped in the golden light. At this moment, it actually looked like a solid heavy sword. Yes, he was a god-tier warrior with the highest title among warriors. At the same time, Nianbing also knew that this Fatso was a Sword Saint Divine tier warrior. Just as she had thought at the beginning, Fatso's strength was absolutely equal to that of a demigod. Nianbing's eyes shone brightly. She raised both of her hands, and her slender and nimble fingers under the movement of her forearms quickly drew 2 hexagrams in front of her, one red and one blue. They looked very distinct. Goddess of ice and snow, please bestow upon me the eternal ice. God of fire, please bestow upon me the flame of nirvana of the phoenix. In my name, the limit of ice and fire merge. The 7 gems on the 7 blades lit up at the same time. The red and blue light intertwined and suddenly rushed toward his body with the other 5 colors. The 7-colored light wrapped around Nianbing's body. With the red and blue hexagrams as the guide, a layer of strange enchantment of all elements was formed. The young man's eyes revealed a strange smile and said to Fatso, "I will let you try my new special magic, Shadow Puppet of all elements." The light of the magic suddenly turned, and 7 rays of light suddenly shot out from the 7-colored light surrounding Nianbing's body. Blue, red, green, yellow, silver, white, and black. The 7-colored light stopped in front of the 7 magic blades. Nianbing's eyes shone brightly, and a strange circular symbol appeared between her eyebrows. It was actually a blurry eye. In an instant, a huge amount of spiritual power floated out and merged with the 7-colored light that shot out. The 7-colored light began to change, and the 7 rays of light almost simultaneously condensed into a 7-colored human figure. It was not an illusory human figure, but was completely composed of magic elements. Regardless of height or appearance, it was exactly the same as Nianbing. It was just that because it was composed of energy, its body was abnormally transparent. The 7 color shadows stretched out their hands at the same time and pulled out the 7 blades that were originally inserted into the ground. In an instant, blue, red, green, yellow, silver, white, and black lights of the 7 colors suddenly lit up. The 7 shadows and the 7 blades seemed to have completely merged into one. The 7 colored shadows moved at a speed that was almost indiscernible to the naked eye. In just a flash, they had already surrounded Fatso in the center. Fatso looked at the 7 shadows that surrounded him with strange auras in shock and asked doubtfully, "Nianbing, what is this thing that you used? Is it still magic?" The 7 puppets moved at the same time with their 7 peerless divine sabers. 7 completely different auras interweaved into a huge net that rushed towards the fatty at the same time. There was no gorgeous splendor, no grand momentum. The 7 different treasured sabers rushed forward at the same time. The saber lights on the sabers were more than a foot long, instantly sealing off all the paths around the fatty. The 7 puppets were like brothers from the same mother, cooperating with incomparable tacit understanding. Fatso had always been proud of his strong defense, but facing the 7 peerless divine blades, he didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. His god's dough, Chi suddenly burst out, and his fat body suddenly moved to the side, waving his hands at the same time. Ding, 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 7 crisp sounds rang out, and the puppets were all knocked back 1 zhang away. However, the 7 shadows immediately merged back together, and the blade lights were still the same, once again attacking Fatso. The light on the blades was an extremely compressed magic power, added with the sharpness of the blades, and the amplification of the 7 top-grade gems. Although the momentum was not that great, the attack power was absolutely terrifying. At this moment, Nianbing wasn't relaxed. Controlling the 7 puppets required her full concentration. After more than 10 battles in the past 3 months, she already had a comprehensive understanding of Fatso's strength. As long as she was slightly careless, Fatso would be able to find an opportunity to destroy the shadow puppets. The 7 puppet strength was equivalent to 7 martial fighters. The reason why they could entangle Fatso and contend against him, other than the perfect coordination under the control of Nian Bing's mental power, there is also the interconnection between the 7 elements of magic and the 7 magical blades. Combined with these characteristics, they were able to make Fatso somewhat wary. Deep marks continuously appeared on the rocks at the top of the mountain. Fatso's body was abnormally agile, and with the addition of his tyrannical god's Do Chi, the shadow puppet's speed was already a little overwhelming. However, he was still able to barely maintain the momentum. The light in Fatso's eyes gradually changed, from the initial surprise to a serious expression. Originally, he thought that Nian Bing would be able to contend against him. Without 10 or 8 years, it would definitely be impossible. However, he never thought that Nian Bing would actually find such a method. With the special characteristics of all elements of magic and the cooperation of the 7 magical blades, she was actually able to trap him. Looking at the flickering blades, Fatso's heart was filled with apprehension. Although he was very confident in himself, he still didn't dare to use his fat body to take on the god's Do Chi blade head-on. The attack method of the 7 shadow puppets was very simple. They relied on speed. Although the god's Do Chi was powerful, it wasn't very effective against the shadow puppets that were formed entirely from magic elements. The speed of the shadow puppets was completely driven by magic elements. Once they moved, there were only 7 faint afterimages in the air. Even Nian Bing, who was controlling them, had to use her heaven's eye to see the shadow puppets' movements. No matter how strong Fatso was, he could only rely on his powerful senses and use his Do Chi to force the shadow puppets to retreat again and again. Against these shadow puppets that could automatically absorb magic elements from the outside world, his consumption of Do Chi was much greater. For a moment, they were completely in a stalemate. Nian Bing naturally wasn't in a hurry. What she wanted to do was to deplete Fatso's Do Chi as much as possible, then find an opportunity to win. The 7 colored figures continued to flicker as if they didn't know fatigue. More and more deep marks appeared on the ground. Although Fatso's god's Do Chi was still powerful, the continuous depletion of Do Chi was a little unbearable for him. Finally, Fatso made his move. His god's Do Chi exploded and suddenly forced the 7 shadow puppets to retreat. In the next moment, his huge body rushed forward and arrived in front of Nian Bing. He punched towards Nian Bing's chest. The best way to defeat the shadow puppets was to cut off their source. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to attack in a battle with Nian Bing. To be able to force Fatso to this extent, Nian Bing should be proud. There was a hint of mockery in Nian Bing's eyes. Seeing that the fat kid was right in front of him, he did not dodge. Suddenly, a 7-colored halo floated out from his body. It was 7 fist-sized light beads. Each bead carried a surge of magical energy. With Nian Bing as the center, the space within a radius of 30 feet was completely distorted. The dense magical energy seemed to have locked everything in place. Fatso's body, that was charging forward at top speed, actually slowed down a lot in an instant. In a flash of light, the 7 shadow puppets actually disappeared and reappeared at the same time, once again surrounding Fatso. However, this time it was different. Fatso's speed was greatly reduced in the distorted 7-colored light, but the 7 shadow puppets' speed was multiplied. The 7-colored light flashed at the same time. Although Fatso had pushed his god's fighting aura in time to force them back, 7 light scars still appeared on his body. Fatso was shocked. The energy released by Nian Bing's body was too strange. Under the full force of his god's fighting aura, his huge body shone with a golden light like the sun. Without daring to stop, he heavily punched the ground, causing the entire mountain peak to collapse. Fatso borrowed the strong recoil to soar into the sky, barely managing to escape the distorted 7-colored energy. However, there were more than 10 scars on his body. Those are not simple wounds. The 7 magical auras attached to the 7 blades pierced into his body like sharp needles. Under the control of Nian Bing, the 7 energies that were originally complementary to each other immediately turned from complementary to counteracting each other as they entered his body. The surging magical energy quickly destroyed his bodily functions. If it were not for his extremely strong defense that filtered out most of the energy, his internal organs would have been torn apart by the 7 different energies. Surrounded by the distorted 7-colored energy, Nian Bing's body floated in the air. Fatso had left the range of this energy. Although the 7 shadow puppets continued to attack him, they could not pose a threat to him for the time being. Fatso's body suddenly began to shine with a 7-colored brilliance. The first light that appeared was yellow, followed by red, blue, green, silver, white, and black. Every time a type of light appeared, a type of magical energy that was attacking his body would be forced out. After the 7 types of light flashed one after another, the energy that was bursting out from the dozens of blades was no longer a threat to him. Even so, it was still a false alarm. The fat on his face trembled slightly. The yellow light condensed into a long sword made of pure energy, carrying a golden do chi. He swung it and formed a ball of light, causing the 7 shadow puppets to be unable to get close to him. Nian Bing looked at Fatso in surprise. Impossible! How can you also know all types of magic? Originally, he thought that Fatso would be seriously injured in the attack just now. But looking at the current situation, although Fatso was injured, the injury was not as serious as he had imagined. Especially when Fatso's body continuously flashed with 7-colored light, he could clearly feel the magical elements being forced out. Fatso dealt with the 7 shadow puppets while angrily saying, "You cunning brat. You actually awakened your innate domain. I was tricked by you. Damn it, what kind of lousy domain is that?" Nian Bing laughed. "This is the secret of why I have never been promoted to Archmage. The innate domain absorbed a large amount of my innate aura and magical energy. It just awakened the day before yesterday. Your first test, it's not bad, right? I gave this domain a name. It's called the Heaven's Eye domain, because it was formed with the help of the Heaven's Eye acupoint, and it can only be fully displayed with the help of the Heaven's Eye acupoint. My domain doesn't have any offensive abilities. It only has 2 types of abilities, amplification and defense. But without its offensive abilities, its defensive and amplification abilities have greatly increased. How about it? It's not bad, right? Once the shadow puppets are in my domain, they can display more than double their original power. Even with your God's Do Chi, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to deal with. Good brat, you really have become stronger. If I don't show my true abilities, it won't be easy to defeat you. Take my Heaven's Defying Strike. Let's see if your domain and shadow puppets can defend against it." Fatso's figure had already disappeared. His whole body was like a huge sun, the golden light continuously rising. The Do Chi sword in his hand was raised high above his head, and the air seemed to have been sucked dry. The 7 shadow puppet speed was actually naturally carried away. The abnormally huge pressure caused the floating Nian Bing to be startled, and he unconsciously floated backwards. The 7 shadow puppets also flew over, fusing into his Heaven's Eye domain. Only in this way could the 7 shadow puppets display their most powerful abilities. These 7 shadow puppets were originally impossible to form with Nian Bing's own ability. But after several months of continuous effort, after opening his spiritual cavities, he finally found a way to use the 7 magic blades. The 7 magic blades were embedded with gems. The magician was the core of these 7 shadow puppets, which was why they could display such a powerful ability, even trapping the divine descent master Fatso. Now, Fatso was clearly enraged. After all, Nian Bing's strength had only increased recently. Facing Fatso, he didn't have the slightest confidence. The strong light suddenly disappeared, and Fatso seemed to be holding a solid long sword in his hand. His face was very calm, and with a light wave of his right hand, a light indistinguishable to the naked, I fluttered out, heading straight for Nian Bing's domain. Nian Bing's expression changed slightly. He could naturally feel that this was an extremely condensed and enormous energy. Both of his hands moved in front of him, completely opening his celestial eye acupoint, and the space between his eyebrows instantly glowed brightly. 7 blades in 1, celestial eye slash. The 7 shadow puppets instantly lined up in a row, raising their 7 magic blades at the same time. At the front was the roaring yang blade of the god of fire, followed by the morning dew blade, the proud heaven blade, the longevity blade, the 4 stars blade, the holy radiance blade, and the demon devouring blade. 7 different lights condensed at one point, and the 7 shadow puppets did the same thing. The celestial eye slash didn't produce a light blade, but a 7-colored light ball. The light ball was very strange, and it was not made up of 7 colors. Instead, it kept flashing, and every time it flashed, it would change into a different light. The light ball was only the size of a fist, and under the identification of the celestial eye acupoint, it accurately locked onto Fatso's heaven-defying slash. As soon as the light ball appeared, the 7 shadow puppets disappeared at the same time, and the 7 divine blades floated around Yinbing. That small light ball had actually drained all the energy of the 7 shadow puppets. What happened next left Nian being dumbfounded. There was no explosion as he had imagined, nor was there any gorgeous light. When the heavenly slash and the celestial eye slash collided, the light ball formed by the celestial eye slash flashed with 7-colored light. Then, with a puff, the 2 attacks actually disappeared completely. It was just a soft sound, but it took away a huge amount of energy from Nianbing and Fatso. Fatty's clothes had already been torn into strips, and he stared at the place where the 2 forces had collided with each other, dumbfounded. He let out a strange cry. What the F *CK? It can't be. How can it be so fast? Nianbing stared blankly and said, Fatso, what do you mean by extreme misfortune comes to light? Fatso smiled bitterly. Isn't it simple? The attack power of the ball you sent out was exactly the same as the heavenly slash I sent out. Under an indescribable and miraculous situation, the 2 forces completely canceled each other out. Because the explosive power reached a certain level and the 2 forces were exactly the same, there would be this extreme misfortune comes to light situation. You can understand it as them canceling each other out. Don't ask me where the explosive energy went. I can't explain it clearly. Although I've long heard of extreme misfortune comes to light, this is the first time I've seen it. Brat, you're pretty good. The power of your attack has already reached the level of a forbidden spell, and it's a single target forbidden spell. It looks like it won't be easy to deal with you. But I don't understand. Why did you suddenly become so powerful? Just an innate domain shouldn't be able to bring you to your current level. Even an archmage wouldn't be able to do anything to you with the amplification and defense of your strange innate domain. Nianbing's eyes were filled with emotion. Looking at the 7 magic blades floating around her body, she said with a smile, Of course, although an innate domain is very strong, it's impossible for it to raise me to such a level. That attack, just now, wasn't just my power, it was also the power of my 7 magic blades. Only by relying on the effect of the 7 top-grade godstones could I barely contend against you. Fatso, I know you've been holding back all this time. Even now, you're still far from using your full strength. But if you want to beat me up so miserably in the future, I'm afraid it won't be easy. Fatso nodded and said, That's right, you've reached your current level. I can easily kill you, but it won't be easy to defeat you. Actually, I can't say I've been holding back. If I want to defeat you, I'll need to use my true strength. At that time, the energy of my attack won't be something I can control. I can only destroy you. But I'm still counting on you to cook for me. How could I bear to kill you? Although I've long expected this day to come, I didn't think it would come so quickly. Your Tian, Yin Meridian, and those 7 lousy blades of yours actually forcefully raised you to such a level. Nianbing dispersed her innate domain and withdrew her 7 magic blades. Floating in the air, she respectfully bowed to Fatso. Senior, although you've often beaten me and forced me to cook for you in the past 3 months, and even capture my beloved Feng Nu, you've also given me a lot of things. Without your guidance and encouragement, the current Nianbing wouldn't be here. Since you can't defeat me without killing me, then shouldn't our battle every 10 days be canceled? Please return Feng Nu to me. Nianbing will always remember your kindness. Chapter 119. A smile appeared on Fatso's face. With a flash of yellow light, his tattered clothes disappeared and were replaced by a new set of clothes made entirely of energy. Boy, you're very smart, but I can't come out with your wife yet. Although you've made some progress in your seven-element magic, it's still far from enough to travel the continent. Hurry up and hand over your sabers. Only when you can reach your previous state without relying on these 7 sabers will the battle between us truly be considered to be over. No matter how good a weapon is, you don't know if you can use it. Do you understand what I mean? Nian Bing stared blankly for a moment. Seeing the smile in Fatso's eyes, she suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. She took out the 7 divine blades from her space ring. Senior, I'm very willing to continue this battle with you because it's very beneficial to me. However, can you let me see Fonu first? It could be considered as a reward for my efforts these days. Although he always knew that Fatso didn't have any hostility, but as the saying goes, being too concerned makes one confused. The longing in his heart for Fonu forced him to say these words. Fatso nodded. Just as he was about to agree to Nian Bing's request, his face suddenly changed. The fat on his fat face trembled. How was this possible? Damn, it's actually a distress signal. Boy, it seems that we have to put aside the matter between us for the time being. At least now you have the ability to protect yourself. Come with me first. Put away your treasure blades. They'll be life-saving items when the time comes. Don't ask anything, just follow me. Saying this, his body was shrouded in a yellow light as he hurriedly flew in a certain direction. Nian Bing didn't know what happened to Fatso, but Fonu was still in his hands. Nian Bing could only follow him as fast as she could. Fatso flew very fast. The speed of flight with Do Chi was something that no magic could reach. At Fatso's level, Do Chi consumption was nothing to him. The consumption of battle energy was nothing to him. After flying for a while, the fatty in Nian Bing's eyes turned into a yellow dot. Just as he was feeling anxious, Fatso suddenly stopped. When Nian Bing approached, he casually waved a yellow rope and wrapped it around her waist. He wrapped it around Nian Bing's waist and said urgently, "Relax your body. Use wind magic to reduce your weight. I'll take you with me. We have to get there as soon as possible." After knowing Fatso for so long, this was the first time that Nian Bing saw such an anxious expression on his face. But Fatso didn't allow her to ask, so she didn't say anything. Under the effect of Do Chi, Fatso quickly flew with Nian Bing towards the north. At this time, Fatso's speed was fully displayed. Nian Bing truly experienced the strength of a god-tier master. Everything around her became illusory. Reaching the limit of speed was like a meteor chasing the moon. The strong wind in the sky made it impossible for Nian Bing to breathe. She simply held her breath and changed to internal breathing. Her body absorbed the natural spiritual energy and various magic elements to replenish her body. The magician flew for 2 days and 2 nights. In the middle, Fatso only stopped once to let Nian Bing eat something while he meditated to recover his Do Chi. When Nian Bing finished eating, the two of them flew again. They were still flying towards the north. Nian Bing's heart was filled with questions. Fatso's strength was already so great. What could make him so anxious on the continent? At first, he thought of many possibilities, but later, he simply stopped thinking about it. While cultivating, he pondered how to perfect his 7 elemental magic. Although the appearance of the natural domain greatly increased Nian Bing's strength, it also absorbed a lot of his magic. Now that he was cultivating, it was the process of truly increasing his strength. Nian Bing understood that she was only a step away from becoming an archmage. Her mental strength was already sufficient. As long as her magic reached the level of 10th step magic, then she could become a true archmage, a full archmage. At that time, as long as she continued to work hard, it wouldn't take too long for her to have the qualifications to challenge the priests of the Ice Goddess. Father, Mother, are you really not dead? If that's the case, just you wait. Nian Bing will definitely save you as fast as possible. Thinking of the Ice Goddess priests, Nian Bing immediately thought of the acupuncture points Fatso mentioned. In these 3 months, she had gained a lot of knowledge from Fatso. According to Fatso, the Ice Goddess priests had only opened 2 acupuncture points. The human body was a miraculous domain. In another part of the continent of gods, the gods living there were actually all humans. However, because of the harsh environment, the people of that time were much stronger than ordinary humans. Some of them had even opened more than 2 acupuncture points, possessing powerful abilities that ordinary people couldn't compare to. If she could also open 2 acupuncture points, then the ice goddess priest wouldn't be so frightening. However, according to what the fatty had said, it was very difficult to open any acupoint. It was not something that could be achieved through hard work alone. Luck was equally important. Although the acupoints of the human body had a fixed position, opening them required not only a huge amount of energy, but also coincided with the right time, geographical location, and other factors. The 7 acupuncture points of the human body were the Tian Yin, Di Ling, Yin Ting, Li Zhong, West Meridian, Feng Jia, and Huang Ji. Among them, the Tian Yin and Huang Ji were the most difficult to open. One of them represented intelligence, while the other represented vigor and strength. None of the 7 acupuncture points were easy to open. The heavenly eye acupoint was located between the eyebrows. The earthly spirit acupoint was located in the middle of the foot. The heavenly hearing acupoint was located an inch below the ear. The Li Zhong acupoint was located half an inch below the thoracic vertebrae. The West Meridian acupoint was located 3 inches below the navel, and the Fengjia acupoint was located 2 inches above the back. The Huangji acupoint could be located anywhere in the human body. Once the Huangji acupoint was opened, the location it was located at would become the strongest point. The Huangji acupoint wasn't just a single acupoint, it could open multiple acupoints. According to Fatty, there were people who had opened 3 Huangji acupoints in the godly continent. Nian Bing naturally wanted to open the Huangji point the most, but he also knew that it was too difficult for him. Only the heavens knew how many years those old monsters in the godly mainland had cultivated. After flying at full speed for 2 days and 2 nights, even a powerhouse like Fatso showed a trace of fatigue on his face. However, his speed didn't slow down at all. On the other hand, Nian Bing's flying didn't affect his cultivation at all. In these 2 days, not only did he recover the energy he used to cast the shadow puppet, but his mana also increased. After opening the Tian Yin point, his speed of absorbing mana was several times faster than before. Naturally, it was much easier for him to cultivate. Every day, he would have a new feeling. Whether or not he could become stronger was only a matter of time for Nian Bing. In the distance, a huge mountain range appeared in front of Nian Bing's eyes. Although they were flying very fast, the mountain range was very wide. Therefore, he could see the pot clearly. Fatso, who had been flying towards the north, suddenly slowed down. His body turned in the air and rushed downwards. Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that they had arrived at their destination? At this time, Fatso's voice clearly entered Nian Bing's ears. Let's not go there. You have to be vigilant at all times. When the time comes, I may not be able to save you. This mountain range is located at the border between the Longmu Empire and the Ice Moon Empire. It's called the Cold Mountain Range, and it's cold all year round. Hearing Fatso's words, Nian Bing was shocked. Although he had a high estimation of flying speed, he didn't expect that he and Fatso would be able to cross the northern part of the Huarong Empire and the entire Longmu Empire in just 2 days. Faint clouds and mist constantly drifted above the mountain ridge. Waves of cold air blew in their faces, and the ice element in the air clearly became more intense. The waves of cold air caused Nian Bing to shiver involuntarily. He hurriedly took out the righteous Yang saber from his spatial ring and used the heat from the saber to expel the cold air. Opening his mouth and exhaling a mouthful of hot air, the water in his breath actually condensed into ice shards and fell to the ground. Nian Bing was very surprised. It was really cold. No wonder his magic couldn't resist this cold air. In such a cold place, who was Fatso looking for? Without waiting for Nian Bing to think about it, Fatso had already brought him close to the cold mountain range. Fatso seemed to be very familiar with the situation here. He flew above the mountain range with ease, as if he was looking for something. Suddenly, Fatso's eyes lit up. It's been a while. I almost forgot the place. I hope they're all right. At this time, a blue light quickly approached from the distance. Fatso's heart skipped a beat, and he stopped in midair. Nian Bing, who was being carried by Fatso, suddenly rushed forward and slammed into him. Fortunately, Fatso's body was thick enough, so he wasn't injured. Why did you suddenly stop? Do you want me to fall to my death? Nian Bing complained. At this time, he also noticed the blue light quickly approaching. Thinking of Fatso's words, his heart suddenly tightened. The blue light was already in front of him in the blink of an eye. A cold voice sounded, "Stupid Fatso, why are you here? Did you send out the signal for help?" Fatso laughed and said, "Sorries, I haven't seen you for so many years. You still look like a dead man. I also received the signal for help and rushed here as fast as I could. I think something happened to Boss and the others." Nian Bing poked his head out from behind Fatso and looked at the blue figure. At this time, his heart was full of doubts. Fatso and this Sasaris knew each other, and it looked like they were friends. Did a master like Fatso have a boss? And his boss was asking for help. Heavens, what kind of world was this? How could so many masters suddenly appear? The person who appeared in front of him was a woman. Her blue dress covered her charming body, and her slender figure was actually about the same height as Nian Bing. Her silver-white hair fluttered in the cold wind, and her clothes looked very thin, but she didn't look cold at all. Her blue eyes, which were similar to his, were filled with a thick chill. Seeing this person, Nian Bing couldn't help but think of the Ice God Tower. His heart sank, and he asked, "Are you from the Ice God Tower?" Sasaris' gaze turned, and he also saw Nian Bing. "The Ice God Tower is nothing. Stupid Fatso, you actually brought a human here?" Nian Bing retorted, "What do you mean a human? Aren't you a human?" Sasaris snorted disdainfully and didn't say anything else. His body suddenly turned around, and he rushed towards a valley in front of him. Fatso glared at Nian Bing and said, "You should stop talking. If you provoke my Sasaris again, I won't let you off." Nian Bing looked at him in surprise and said, "Your Sasaris? Is she your wife?" Fatso said somewhat awkwardly, "Not yet, but I will work hard. I believe she will be soon." "Fatso, you are having a wet dream again. Aren't you afraid that Sasaris will hear you and freeze your fat?" The cyan light was like a meteor, and in the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Nian Bing and Fatso. It was a tall, middle-aged man, dressed in cyan clothes, and he had an otherworldly aura. Seeing this person, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. But when he thought about it carefully, he realized that he didn't have any impression of this person in his memory. Fatso said angrily, "Damn it, Karadiris, can't you give me some encouragement? Although Lil Bing doesn't like me now, it doesn't mean she won't like me in the future." Karadiris laughed and said, "All right, you lazy Fatso, hurry up and leave. Did you forget the signal for help?" Hearing the words Karadiris, Nian Bing's heart moved. He suddenly realized that he had definitely heard this name before, and it had a deep impression. Just as he was thinking about it, Fatso and Karadiris moved at the same time. They followed the direction where Sasaris had disappeared and headed towards the valley. Just as they passed by the ice peak, Nian Bing suddenly felt a spring-like warmth blowing on his face. His whole body was warm and indescribably comfortable. A large expanse of green appeared in front of his eyes. This was actually a warm valley. In the cold mountain range, where the temperature was extremely low, there was actually such a good place. This was something he had never expected. Fatso and Karadiris' figures floated down. There were 3 people on the ground, and they looked towards them. One of them was a tall man in silver clothes, and his appearance was 70% similar to Karadiris. The other was a woman in blue clothes, and naturally, it was Sasaris. The last person made Nian Bing's eyes widen. It was the fire Garamandes that he hadn't seen for many days. In an instant, all kinds of thoughts kept surging in Nian Bing's mind. He suddenly turned around, grabbed Fatso's collar, and asked, "Damn Fatso, you are also a dragon, right? You are the Earth Dragon King?" All kinds of doubts about Fatso were completely solved at this moment. Why did he have such a powerful strength? Why did he know both magic and martial arts? Why did he have such a strong defense? Why did he emit the radiance of 7 magic when he broke his shadow puppets? Why did he know that he was a chef? Everything was solved because of the identity of this Earth Dragon King. In an instant, he understood everything. Nian Bing's anger was not without some luck. At least, he was now sure that Fatso was not his enemy. Fatso slapped Nian Bing's hand away. He laughed and said, "Kid, your reaction is very fast. Garamandes, it was you who exposed us." Garamandes said unhappily, "Damn Fatso, you must have eaten a lot of good things from Nian Bing, and you still blame me. However, why did you bring Nian Bing here? He is only a human. I'm afraid he won't be able to deal with the things we are about to face." When Nian Bing saw Garamandes, an indescribable feeling of familiarity rose in his heart. "Stinky fire dragon, it was you who sent Fatso to deal with me, wasn't it? Hurry up and tell him to release Feng Nu." Garamandes walked to Nian Bing's side and affectionately put his arm around his shoulder. He smiled and said, "Come, let me introduce you. This is the beautiful young lady of the 7 Dragon Kings, Ice Dragon King Sasaris." As he said that, he pointed at the long-haired beauty in blue clothes. Sasaris looked at Nian Bing and frowned slightly. He said, "Garamandes, you and Fatso seem to be very familiar with this human." Nian Bing now understood that Sasaris was indeed not a human. No wonder she said that before. Garamandes laughed and said, "Of course we are very familiar with him. If you have eaten his cooking, you will quickly become familiar with him." "Oh, so that means he is a famous chef?" The silver-robed man on the side came over with some surprise. Garamandes nodded and said, "And he is also a magician, Nian Bing. This guy is the most useless one among us. Space Dragon King Kadiris, except for escaping, his other abilities are ordinary. You don't have to pay attention to him." "So it's you." Kadiris also came over. "I don't need to introduce you. I think you know who I am." Nian Bing nodded and said, "It's really you. We met last time. You're the White People's Guardian Dragon, Wind Dragon King Kadiris." Kadiris rushed to say, "And he is also my dear brother." Kadiris frowned slightly. Garamandes said, "How are you two brothers? If you have half of Carlote's temper, you wouldn't be like this now." Finally, Garamandes' gaze fell on Fatso. "This Fatso must have eaten a lot of good things from you. You have to remember, he is the laziest, the most delicious, and also the fattest among the 7 of us, Earth Dragon King Papaliukas. If you want to take revenge, remember his name. You have to use your own strength. I hope to see you squeeze a few pounds of oil out of him. Scared? I don't see anything scary about him." Nian Bing said in annoyance. Fatso's veins on his forehead were throbbing. "Bah, not that kind of fear. It's a handkerchief. Who cares what kind of fear you are? Let my Feng Nu out first. Garamandes, I need you to give me an explanation." Fatso muttered, "Looks like it'll be difficult to eat this 7-element feast again. Let her out then." With a wave of his hand, a red figure appeared in front of Nian Bing. It was Feng Nu, whom he had not seen for several months. Seeing Feng Nu appear, the Space Dragon King Kadiris' eyes lit up like hearts. Kadiris and Sasaris both looked surprised. Obviously, it was because of Feng Nu's radiance. Feng Nu's expression did not change much, but her face was full of joy. She suddenly threw herself into Nian Bing's arms. Nian Bing. Tears flowed down her face. For the past few months, she had been in Fatso's interspatial bag. Although she could see everything outside, the loneliness in the interspatial bag and Nian Bing's continuous efforts had already made her emotional. Now that she was finally free, how could she control the emotions in her heart? She could no longer care about how many people were around. When Nian Bing saw Feng Nu crying when she saw her, she misunderstood and thought that Fatso had made her suffer. She immediately glared at Fatso. Fatso was stunned and said, "Why are you looking at me? I didn't do anything. If you don't believe me, you can ask your wife." Only then did Feng Nu remember that there were other people around. She quickly left Nian Bing's arms and wiped the tears on her face. Nian Bing nodded gently and said, "Although Fatso captured me back then, he also gave me a lot of pointers in martial arts." "Nian Bing, it's been hard on you these days. You've lost weight." Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, Of course I lost weight. I was beaten up every 10 days and forced to cook for Fatso. I spent most of my remaining time cultivating. I tried to save you as soon as possible. Fatso chuckled and said, "You can't blame me for this. Garamandes asked me to do this. It has nothing to do with me. If you want to take revenge, you can look for him." Garamandes looked at Fatso with a faint smile and said, "I asked you to look for Nian Bing and think of a way to help her, but I didn't ask you to eat her cooking. Your intentions are not pure." Nian Bing looked at Garamandes in confusion. Although she had already guessed the gist of it, she couldn't help but ask, "Garamandes, what's going on?" Garamandes smiled and said, "It's very simple. Something happened to our 7 Dragon Kings. Originally, we gathered everyone to discuss countermeasures, but this Fatso was too lazy to participate in the meeting. I had no choice but to go to his lair in the ice cave in the extreme north and drag him out. Later, when we were on our way here, we passed by Ice Snow City and had a meal at a place called Breeze Fasting. Fatso was full of praise for the food there. I thought of you and introduced your cooking skills to him. In the end, Fatso heard that we had a good relationship, so he volunteered to look for you and help you improve your strength. You should know what happened after that, but I didn't tell him what to do. What he did to you is his own business." Fatso, I really don't understand. What's so scary about Nian Bing that you have to push the responsibility to me?" Fatso said in annoyance, "Why don't you try him out and see what abilities he has? In terms of ability, I, Fatty, am not the strongest among the 7 of us, but I can barely be considered average. But in terms of defense, even Boss Catiatus might not be able to compare to me. After all, I'm the Earth Dragon King. Defense is my forte. Nian Bing can break through my defense and injure my body. What do you think I'm afraid of? If you have the ability, you could try to fight him without using forbidden spells or above. It's a waste of my words. This is also the reason why I brought him here this time. I think he should be able to help us." Garamandes looked at Nian Bing in surprise. He was naturally very clear about Nian Bing's strength. In just half a year, he never expected Nian Bing to have improved so much. Even the Earth Dragon King, Papaliukas, praised him. Hearing Fatso's words, the anger on Nian Bing's face gradually disappeared. He took Feng Nu's hand and said, "Fatso, although you have been tormenting me these days, and you have eaten a lot of my dishes, but overall, you have never really made things difficult for me. Without your help, my magic wouldn't have been able to grow so fast. Now that everything is clear, we are even. I don't hate you, and I don't feel grateful for your kindness." Fatso rubbed his 2 fat hands together. He muttered, "Stinking brat, you don't have to be so heartless. But I have no interest in other food now. You see," a hint of a smile appeared at the corner of Nian Bing's mouth. "You're neither my enemy nor my benefactor, but you can be my friend. I have always liked to make food for my friends and invite them to taste it." Fatso was immediately overjoyed. "Good, good. I will be your friend. Stinking brat, I didn't help you for nothing. Did you think that the beating I gave you once every 10 days was really because I wanted to exercise my body? You little brat, you really don't know how lucky you are. If others asked me to beat you, I wouldn't beat them. I used my God's battle chi to change the various functions in your body, strengthening your body as a whole. I, Fatso, didn't eat your food for nothing. Don't blame me for taking your wife away. If I don't lock her up, how can you cultivate peacefully? Besides, although your wife's improvement speed is not as fast as yours, is not slow either. She is a very talented young lady." Wind Dragon King Karadiris said in surprise, "Fatso, you are actually so kind? That kind of consumption of God's battle chi is enough to put a burden on your body." Fatso gave a silly smile and said, "Who asked this brat to make such delicious food? Originally, I didn't want to do that. But after thinking about it, if I don't contribute something after eating so much of his food, I will definitely be eaten by Garamandes. I can't think of any other way, so this is the only way." Nian Bing had been feeling changes in her body recently, but she didn't expect that it was the result of being beaten up by Fatso. She smiled and said, "Fatso, I won't thank you." Fatso chuckled and said, "You don't need to thank me. Just remember to make more delicious food for me." Sasaris suddenly opened her mouth. Her cold voice immediately destroyed the harmonious atmosphere. Stop talking nonsense. Garamandes, what is the situation here? Why did you suddenly send out a distress signal? Hearing Sasari's question, Garamandes' smiling face immediately sank. The situation is very serious. Otherwise, I wouldn't have sent out a distress signal. Demand Teddy is about to give birth, and the enemy suddenly appeared 2 days ago. The enemy is much stronger than we imagined. From their aura, it is very likely that they are the ones who stole Miorda's sealing bottle. 2 days ago, before I sent out the distress signal, the 4 of us Dragon King barely managed to drive the enemy away. However, Demand Teddy's fetus was affected. I'm afraid that she will give birth prematurely in 1 or 2 days. You also know that we dragons are at our weakest when we give birth. Moreover, after giving birth, it will take several days for the baby to hatch. During this process, not only will Demand Teddy not be able to attack, but Kajios will also have to protect her with all his strength. The enemy is so powerful that I can only send out a distress signal to ensure their safety. Karadiris frowned and said, "That's impossible. We are almost invincible on this continent. How can there be an enemy that requires 4 Dragon King to fight together?" Garamandes said seriously, "There is nothing impossible in this world. I will only say one. Think about it, and you will know why the enemy is so terrifying. Among the enemy's leaders, not only is there a Dark Witch who is not afraid of physical attacks, there's also a Lich who is the ruler of the underworld. Just these 2 fellows alone will bring us a lot of trouble." Hearing the words Dark Witch and Lich, the 5 Dragon King present all fell silent. Having lived for tens of thousands of years, they all understood what these 2 titles represented. Sasaris did not say anything. Fatso frowned, and Kadiri smiled bitterly. It was the Wind Dragon King, Karadiris, who spoke. "No matter what, the 7 Dragon Kings are all here. No matter how strong the enemy is, we should be able to deal with it. Let's go in and take a look at Kajios and Demand Teddy." Saying that, he took the lead and walked toward a spacious cave not far away. The other Dragon King followed closely behind. Nianbing gave Fengnu a look and quickly stepped forward. She grabbed Garamandes, who was walking at the back, and said in a low voice, "Let's talk alone. I have something to ask you." Garamandes was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "All right, let's go over there and talk." Nianbing turned around and smiled gently at Fengnu, saying, "Wait for me here. I will be back soon." Saying that, she walked with Garamandes to the bushes at the side. Nianbing walked until she was at a place where Fengnu could not hear her before stopping. Garamandes smiled and said, "Don't worry. Fatso bringing you here was a mistake in itself. I will not let you take any risks. Later, I will say goodbye to Fatso and send you out of the Cold Mountain Range." Nianbing frowned and said angrily, "Garamandes, who do you think I am? Do you think I am so afraid of death? From the first time we met until now, you are no longer an enemy in my heart. How can I not help my friends when they are in trouble? Although my strength is meager and nothing compared to the 7 Dragon Kings, I'm still willing to use this meager strength to do my part." Garamandes looked at Nianbing with some surprise. "Kid, you have changed a lot." Nianbing smiled and looked at him, saying, "You have also changed a lot. At least in front of your own kind, you no longer call yourself the Great Garamandes. Moreover, you don't seem to be as frivolous as I thought. You really have a calm side when you encounter problems." Garamandes said angrily, "I just praised you a few times, and you come to insult me. Tell me, why did you come here without telling your wife?" Nianbing pondered for a moment before saying, "Garamandes, tell me the truth. Who are the enemies you are facing this time? How strong can they be? Is their goal to snatch the remaining Miorda's sealing bottles?" Chapter 120. Garamandes nodded and said, "That's right. Their goal is the remaining few bottles. Now there are still 4 bottles in our hands. We must not let them get them. Our enemy this time is very strong. It can be said that all the dark forces in this continent are not as strong as them. Do you know what a Lich is? It is a guy who needs extremely good luck, is extremely persistent in the dark, and needs thousands of years to be able to cultivate successfully." Nianbing smiled and said, "I have heard of Lich. I have even seen a Dark Witch. Looking at Garamandes' surprised eyes, he told him about the encounter with Hillard that day. After hearing Nian Bing's words, Garamandes said, "So you have such an encounter. No wonder you can grow so fast. That blade of yours is indeed very useful against those fellows from the underworld, but it's a pity that you're the one holding it. If it was Dimini who had the Holy Radiance blade, then even a lich wouldn't have to be afraid of him. Nian Bing, do you know? Our biggest problem this time is that we do not have a master who can completely compete with the lich. The strength of the lich has exceeded our expectations, and without the support of the light Dragon King Demanteti, the battle will be very difficult. It is not too late for you to decide to leave now." Nian Bing smiled lightly and said, "I am not a person who goes back on my words. Since I said I will stay, I will definitely stay. However, I must have phoned new leave. I asked you to come over. There's another thing. I want you to send her out of the Cold Ridge." Garamandes said, "You have met after a long time. Will she be willing to leave you?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "I have my ways. Well, I have roughly understood the situation. Let's go back." "Wait a minute." Garamandes called Nian Bing. His expression was a little bashful. "Nian Bing, after we get through this, I have something to ask you." Nian Bing was stunned. "What's wrong with you? What's going on?" Garamandes blushed and said, "Let's talk about it after we pass this hurdle." "All right, let's go back." Nian Bing nodded and said, "You go to the cave and greet the other Dragon King first. I'll talk to Feng Nu about something, then you can send her out of the Cold Mountain Range." "Okay." Garamandes nodded and said, "This is a small matter. Besides, phone people and our dragons have some relationship. Sending her out is not a problem, as long as you can persuade her." The two of them returned to the cave entrance. Garamandes went straight into the cave, while Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing with concern. Nian Bing took Feng Nu's hand and said softly, "Aren't you going to ask me what I said to Garamandes?" Feng Nu smiled and shook her head. "That's a matter between you men. Everyone should have some privacy." Nian Bing's heart warmed. He caught Feng Nu's elastic waist. After the things that happened in the past few months, although Nian Bing and Feng Nu did not meet, the two of them had a feeling of suffering. Feng Nu did not break away from Nian Bing's hand. Instead, she took the initiative to lean on his shoulder and hug him. Nian Bing hesitated for a moment and said, "Feng Nu, I've always wanted to tell you something." "Okay, go ahead." The Phoenix Maiden slowly closed her eyes with a warm expression on her face. Nian Bing gritted his teeth and said, "The thing I want to say may be related to your background." Feng Nu suddenly opened her beautiful eyes and looked at Nian Bing, said in surprise, "My background? I was born in the Feng people. The Feng people are my home. How do you know about my background?" Nian Bing sighed softly and said, "Yes, the Feng people are your home. However, do you know who your parents are?" Feng Nu's pretty face instantly lost all color. She said involuntarily, Could it be that, you know?" Nian Bing held her cold little hand and said, "Don't be agitated. Let me finish. I'm just guessing. I'm not completely sure. I still need to verify it." Feng Nu's breathing became a little hurried. "How do you verify it?" Nian Bing said 4 words in a deep voice, "Drip your blood to identify your family." Seeing that Feng Nu was a little stunned, the space ring on his hand flashed with silver light. The small bottle that he had taken from Dookie Yu's residence suddenly appeared in his hand. It was a bottle made of suet jade. Fresh blood would not rot. Feng Nu's breathing became even more hurried. She looked at Nian Bing doubtfully. Whose blood is this?" Nian Bing did not answer. He took out a bowl from a space ring and condensed a piece of ice in it. He then used fire magic to melt the ice into water. He opened the jade bottle and dripped a drop of blood into it. He said, "Don't ask whose blood it is first. Drip a drop of blood into it. If the blood can fuse, I will naturally tell you." If his guess was correct, he would naturally tell Feng Nu everything. Otherwise, it would be useless to say anything. Why should he disturb Feng Nu's mind? Feng Nu nodded. She took a deep breath and condensed her dough qi into the shape of a needle. She lightly pricked her right index finger. Immediately, a drop of blood fell into the bowl. Nian Bing used light magic to stop the bleeding. Both of their gazes fell on the bowl, deeply gazing at it. The 2 drops of blood were like 2 red flowers slowly blooming. Gradually, the two bright red blobs gradually approached each other. Feng Nu nervously clenched her fists. Nian Bing also nervously held her breath. After all, this was related to Feng Nu's background. Finally, the two blobs of blood touched each other. Before Nian Bing and Feng Nu could react, the two blobs of blood quickly condensed together and could no longer be distinguished. The red color continued to expand. Nian Bing and Feng Nu were somewhat sluggish. The blood identification was a success. For a moment, all kinds of thoughts flashed through Nian Bing's mind. In his mind, he seemed to see the scene from that year, as if he saw everything that had happened between Yu Ruiyan and Feng Nu. Feng Nu stared blankly at the blood in the bowl. Her lips began to tremble slightly. Of course, she understood what the fusion of blood meant. Family. These two words had always been unfamiliar in her mind. She couldn't think of who the family that Nian Bing was talking about was. However, the blood in front of her was so real. After dealing with the blood and water in the bowl, Nian Bing's face revealed a sincere smile. He opened his arms and pulled Feng Nu into his embrace. He could understand Feng Nu's complicated feelings. What she needed was his comfort. Who is it? Whose blood is this? Feng Nu snuggled tightly in Nian Bing's embrace. It seemed that only this warm embrace was the most desirable. Nian Bing didn't hesitate. He said softly, "You have seen this person before. She is Yu Ruiyan that you wanted to capture in Lan City. She's also my godmother. She is your mother, and the Duke of Lan Yu of the Ottoman Empire is your father." Feng Nu suddenly struggled out of Nian Bing's embrace. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. No. How is this possible? Nian Bing smiled bitterly. There is nothing impossible in this world. Not only does the blood of the Feng people flow in your body, similarly, the blood of the Duke of Lan Yu also flows in your veins. You should know that in the history of the Feng people, Yu Ruiyan betrayed her clan and married the Duke of Lan Yu. The daughter they gave birth to was burned to death by the Feng people. In fact, the elders of the Feng people had a deep relationship with my godmother. How could they really hurt her and hurt her flesh and blood? So, the eldest daughter who should have been burned to death. It was you. Feng Nu's pretty face drained of blood. She staggered back a few steps. Lied to me. The elders have been lying to me all this time. I actually have parents. My mother is actually a sinner of the clan. Why? Why did I only know all this now? Why? Tears flowed down her beautiful face. She suddenly knew the truth. Feng Nu's heart was filled with all kinds of thoughts. Nian Bing quickly stepped forward and hugged her tightly twice. Feng Nu, do you know how much I envy you? Although you lost the love and care of your parents in your childhood, it was not because they abandoned you. Do you know how much pain your godmother felt because of your death? Now, it has been confirmed that you are their daughter. You have parents. You have biological parents. You are much stronger than me. I know where my parents are, but I can't go find them. Do you know how much I want to be like you and be able to see my parents? Thinking of her own parents who had suffered so much. In addition, being infected by Feng Nu, Nian Bing also cried. A pair of lovers was filled with sadness and joy because of their parents. Gradually, Feng Nu calmed down and stopped crying. She sobbed and said, "Nian Bing, what should I do now? Tell me, what should I do now?" Nian Bing wiped her tears and said firmly, "Of course you should go and see them now. They are your parents. Don't tell me you don't want to spend time with them. Don't you want to be with your parents?" Feng Nu raised her head and looked at Nian Bing in a daze. Can I really do that? Nian Bing, Feng people raised me and taught me powerful skills. However, my mother betrayed the clan. If I meet them, how will the Feng people see me? Will they still let me go back and help the Feng people get through this difficult time? Nian Bing gently kissed the tears on Feng Nu's face and said with a smile, "Silly girl, who do you think my godmother is? In fact, she has never forgotten anything about the Feng people. She is also a member of the Feng people. Not to mention that she won't stop you from helping the Feng people. She has already planned to go back to the Feng people to help the clan get through this difficult time. However, the conditions put forward by the Feng people's elders were too harsh. She couldn't bear to part with your father, so she hesitated and didn't go back. As long as you go back, the estrangement between your parents and the Feng people will no longer exist. Everything will become harmonious. At that time, the reason why your mother made up her mind to betray the phone people was because of your death. Taking a step back, if you're not their daughter, and we continue to develop like this, as long as we truly love each other, there will be a day when you will walk the same path as your mother. Think about it from her point of view. On one side is her beloved husband, and on the other side is the clan that raised her. Godmother has experienced the pain of making a choice too many times. Go back to her side. I can guarantee with my life that she will follow you back to the phone people to help the clan get through this difficult time. You know her strength very well. With the two of you joining, that ceremony will no longer be a threat to the phone people. For personal reasons, you must go to the Duke's mansion and return to your parents' side. Feng Nu was silent. She laid in Yin Bing's arms and kept thinking. Every word Yin Bing said deeply touched her heart. She was originally a soft-hearted person, thinking about the pain Yu Ruyin and her husband had suffered, and thinking about the feelings between her and Yin Bing. Her perplexed heart gradually opened up, and the sadness in her beautiful eyes gradually disappeared. Can you go back with me? Yin Bing. I'm a bit scared by being alone. Feng Nu said softly. Yin Bing was overjoyed. He knew that Feng Nu had already acknowledged her parents in her heart. That's right. They were originally a family. Because of all kinds of misunderstandings and tribulations, they were separated. It was time for their family to reunite. At this moment, Yin Bing really wanted to agree to let Feng Nu go with her, but he couldn't. With regards to Garamandes and the other 7 Dragon Kings going through a calamity, he couldn't leave no matter what, even if he knew it was extremely dangerous. He chose to tell Feng Nu everything at this time, in order to let Feng Nu stay away from the danger that was about to happen. Slowly shaking his head, Yin Bing said in a low voice, Feng Nu, I'm sorry. I can't go to the Ottoman Empire for the time being. I just talked to Garamandes. He told me that my cultivation has reached the most critical point. I just need to take another step forward to enter the realm of Archmage. Moreover, I have to go back to the Ice Moon Empire. Do you still remember Longling? I have to go back to see her. Moreover, the competition I promised her father is already over. I have to go back and let him know. Feng Nu raised her head and looked at Yin Bing. Her eyes were filled with disappointment, but she didn't ask for anything. If it was any other time, she would definitely be able to see that Yin Bing's expression was a bit off. She would be able to hear the insincerity in his words. However, her good heart was in a mess right now. She couldn't think of these things at all. The Kinder didn't ask for anything more. She could only silently agree. At this moment, the footsteps of several Dragon Kings sounded. Yin Bing hurriedly separated from Feng Nu. He saw Earth Dragon King Fatso, Fire Dragon King Garamandes, Space Dragon King Kadiris, Wind Dragon King Karadiris, and Ice Dragon King Sasaris walking out together. Karadiris said unhappily, Hurry up and use your dirty thoughts to think of others. Don't interfere with other people's business. Kadiri said unhappily, Karo, no matter what, I'm still your brother. Can't you be a little more polite to me? Garamandes snorted and said, It depends on who you're being polite to. If you weren't such a good-for-nothing and your personality wasn't so annoying, would he treat you like this? After saying that, he ignored the Space Dragon King. Nianbing gave a questioning look. Nianbing pulled Feng Nu's hand and said, Garamandes, I'll leave Feng Nu to you. Feng Nu, I'll ask Garamandes to send you out of the Coal Mountain Range. As long as you keep going east, you'll soon enter the Ottoman Empire. With your strength, you won't be in any danger. Be careful along the way. After I'm done with some things, I'll go to Allen City to find you. Okay? While you're at it, send my regards to Godmother and Godfather. Feng Nu nodded lightly. She looked deeply at Nianbing and said, I'm fine. Don't worry. Don't think too much. Are my parents your parents too? After saying that, she couldn't help but blush slightly. Nianbing's heart was filled with deep affection. Feng Nu still didn't forget to care about her at this time. With a wife like this, what more could he ask for? She didn't say anything else. She turned around and nodded to Garamandes. Garamandes laughed and said, Little girl, come on up. This road isn't short and the environment is bad. I'll send you off. After saying that, his tall figure rose into the air. In an instant, The entire valley seemed to have an additional cloud. A red cloud. The Fire Dragon King had already revealed his dragon form. Feng Nu suddenly threw herself into Nian Bing's arms and kissed her on the cheek. She said in a voice that only Nian Bing could hear, "Take care." Only then did she float up. Her delicate body made a turn in the air and gently landed on Garamandes' broad back like a flying bird. Garamandes raised his head and let out a loud dragon roar. His huge dragon wings flapped lightly. He suddenly accelerated and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Nian Bing looked in the direction that Feng Nu and Garamandes left. She stared deeply in the direction that Feng Nu and Garamandes left. She couldn't shift her gaze away for a long time. "All right, don't look anymore. They've already left. This girl is not bad. Back then, I told her that I wouldn't hurt you. She immediately agreed to let me do whatever I want with her. Kid, you must cherish her." Nian Bing retracted her gaze and turned to look at Fatso, who was speaking. He had always been with Feng Nu for such a long time. No matter if it was their cohabitation in Great Sky City or when Fatso took her away, Feng Nu had always been close to him. When Feng Nu left, he couldn't help but feel a little empty in his heart, as if he had lost something. He understood that his love for Feng Nu had risen to another level. He couldn't abandon her in this lifetime. That Nian Bing. Fatso chuckled. He rubbed his hands and said, "After flying for 2 days and sleeping for 10 days, I'm a little hungry. Look, can you make something to eat? Even barbecue would be good. The barbecue you make is much better than mine." Nian Bing glared at him and said, "What do you want to eat? Barbecue Earth Dragon?" Kadiris chuckled and said, "Good, that's a good idea. Fatso has thick skin and a lot of meat, and also has oil. If we barbecue it, it will definitely taste good." Fatso said angrily, "Ka-ao, are you itching for a beating? That mouth of yours is really annoying." Kadiris chuckled and said, "What? Don't tell me you want to eat me? Fatso, although I can't beat you, you can't catch up to me either. I won't lose a piece of meat even if I say a few words to you. Just bear with it." Sasari seemed to hate the Space Dragon King Kadiris very much. He said coolly, "Fatso, if I were you, I wouldn't bear with it." Kadiris was stunned and said, "Beautiful Sasaris, why are you stirring up trouble?" Sasari snorted and said, "I'm just speaking the truth." Fatso smiled bitterly and said, "I'll bear with it. I really can't catch up to this guy. He runs much faster than a rabbit." Kadiris pretended to be angry and said, "You Fatso, you actually compared my most handsome Space Dragon King to a rabbit." After the Dragon King's disturbance, Nian Bing's originally gloomy mood couldn't help but relax a lot. She smiled and said, "Fatso, if you want to find him for revenge, I can help you." Kadiri said with disdain, "Human, I'm afraid you still don't know how powerful I, the Space Dragon King, am. In this world, as long as I want to go, I can go to any corner of space. Although my nodding strength is a bit lacking when it comes to twisting and turning, flying and teleporting among the 7 Dragon Kings, if I say I'm second, no one would dare to say they're first." Nian Bing chuckled and said, "Is that so? Fatso's fist is very hard. You better think carefully." Fatso seemed to have thought of something. Nian Bing smiled strangely and walked towards Kadiris in large strides. Kadiris immediately became vigilant, his body emitting a layer of faint silver light. "Damn Fatso, what do you want to do?" Fatso chuckled and suddenly shouted, "Nian Bing, do it." In an instant, a layer of 7-colored brilliance floated out from Nian Bing's body. The brilliance suddenly disappeared after appearing, and when it reappeared, it had already accompanied Nian Bing to not far from Kadiris. The distorted 7-colored brilliance enveloped Nian Bing and Kadiris' bodies. Kadiris was just about to use his space magic to escape from Fatso's pursuit, when he suddenly felt his body become sluggish. The space magic that he was so proud of actually failed. Although he was faster than Fatso, but how much faster could a Dragon King be? In this sluggish moment, Fatso had already rushed up and heavily punched towards Kadiris. At this time, there was already no possibility of dodging. Kadiris was just about to block when suddenly he was shocked to find that Nian Bing's body turned around. In the seven-colored brilliance that was originally emitted by Nian Bing, the silver brilliance suddenly disappeared, and the yellow brilliance suddenly increased. A part of the space energy that he had raised was actually absorbed, and Fatso's earth magic element instantly increased in size. Fatso laughed out loud. That felt good. I've always wanted to teach this guy a lesson. It's been a long time since I've made such a satisfying punch. Nian Bing, you're really something. It actually feels so good to cooperate with this strange domain of yours. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, although this sky, domain of mine, does not have the ability to attack, other than defense and amplification, it also has a special ability. That is to weaken. In my domain, it can greatly weaken the effect of any type of magic element. Therefore, his space transfer cannot be used, and his attack power is also greatly weakened. Hearing Nian Bing's understatement, the Ice Dragon King Sasaris and the Wind Dragon King Karadiris, who were standing at the side, were all moved. They looked at Nian Bing in surprise. At this time, they realized that they had indeed underestimated this human. Being able to use the 7 types of magic had always been the dragon's specialty. However, they knew that they were not as good as Nian Bing's use of magic. Damn, this brat actually tricked me. Kadiris finally landed from the sky. His face was a little distorted, and his hands were constantly rubbing his stomach. The pain was obviously a huge burden to him. Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, I'm just helping my friend. Fatso is, but you at least for now are not. He was not afraid of Kadiris. Although he could not deal with the weakest of the 7 Dragon Kings, the Space Dragon King, he was confident that Kadiris would not be able to hurt him if he did not use a forbidden spell. He gradually discovered the wonderful use of the sky, domain, and more he realized that the use of this domain far exceeded his expectations. Kadiris was just about to flare up. Sasaris and Karadiris' figures flashed at the same time, and they were already in front of him. Kadiris was stunned for a moment and said, What are you doing? Are you also going to help an outsider? Karadiris said indifferently, Brother, I now understand why Fatso brought him here. Don't tell me you didn't realize how much help his domain is to us. In a situation where Demand Teddy is unable to move, the help he brings to us is enormous. From Nian Bing's actions just now, they had already understood many things. Sasaris turned to Nian Bing and said, How large an area can your domain cover? Nian Bing thought for a moment. She said, Under normal circumstances, it can cover 3 zhang, and at full strength, it should be able to cover up to 5 zhang, but it cannot be maintained for long. You also know that a domain consumes a lot of magic power. Sasaris nodded and said, This is enough. You are responsible for guarding the cave entrance. Fatso, Ko, and Carlo will assist you. Nian Bing turned to look at the entrance of the cave. Sure enough, the cave was 3 zhang high, which was exactly the range that her domain could cover. With a strange smile on his face, Nian Bing said, I still have some good things to give to your enemy. Since he had decided to stay, he would do his best, not only for the 7 Dragon Kings, but more importantly, for his own survival. What good things do you have? Fatso looked at Nian Bing doubtfully. You have to know that our enemy is very powerful and not something that can be dealt with ordinary abilities. It is already very good to have your domain help. Nian Bing knew that he was hinting at her not to be rash, so she smiled and said, Don't worry. Aren't you hungry? Then let's eat something first. I remember that you should still have a few cows hidden, right? Make one, but you'll have to help. I don't have that much strength. Hearing the word eat, Fatso's eyes suddenly lit up. Good. With a wave of his hand, a majestic bull suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Without waiting for the bull to make a sound, Fatso casually smashed its head with his palm, then pulled the bull from behind and walked outside. You guys wait for a while. I'll clean up the bull and come back. Seeing the poor dead bull being pulled away by Fatso, Nian Bing couldn't help but think of Kitty's summoned beast. If the bull that could only shoot out attacks was roasted, how would it taste? Perhaps Kitty would fight with her life. Thinking of Kitty's cute appearance, he couldn't help but reveal a knowing smile and asked the Wind Dragon King, Caradiris, how are Senior Hillard and Kitty? Chapter 121. Caradiris smiled and said, Good? Not good at all. Kitty is getting more and more naughty. She even wants to come with me this time. She's really too playful. Her father has a headache because of her. However, this girl's talent is still very good. Her little pets have already evolved to the second level. Recently, she's been locked up by her father to practice magic. Nianbing laughed and said, She's still young. Naturally, she's a little playful. However, Kitty is a good girl. She's very kind. Caradiris smiled and said, Your generation of young people is getting more and more outstanding. It seems that the future hope of mankind lies on you. Nianbing, I heard from Hillard about what happened to you last time. He was really too reckless. It's not enough. He only acted like that because he loves his daughter. Don't be calculative with him. Nianbing smiled and said, Let bygones be bygones. I've already made it clear to Senior Hillard. That's good. When things here are over, I'll take you to their place to play if there's a chance. I think Kitty will be very happy to see you. Nianbing thought of Feng Nu and the hatred she carried. She smiled bitterly and said, I'll have to wait until there's a chance. At this moment, Fatso came back with a clean cow. He had used some unknown method to make the cow extremely clean. Even the cow's skin had been removed. Caradiris laughed and said, Fatso, you're good. I'm afraid you can only be so fast when you're eating. Fatso laughed strangely and said, Are you making fun of me? I brought this cow. Don't eat it later if you have the ability. Caradiris turned to Nianbing and said, I also heard that your cooking skills are superb. Show us your skills. Nianbing smiled indifferently and walked to Fatso's side. She said, You're in charge of rotating the cow. Leave the rest to me. Use a thick piece of wood to skewer the cow. All right, no problem. Fatso agreed. After a few leaps, he returned and used a thick and long branch to skewer the cow's body. With one hand raised, a cow weighing 400 to 500 pounds was as light as a feather in his hand. Seeing that Fatso was ready, Nianbing also moved quickly, her space ring flashing as she took out dozens of bottles and jars of various sizes. At the same time, she also took out a large condiment box and began adding spices into the various jars, stirring them quickly with a pair of chopsticks. While doing this, he muttered to himself, Roasting a whole cow is not like roasting a whole lamb. Mutton was fatter and more tender than beef, and it was also more nutritious. Moreover, due to its size, it was easier to cook. This cow weighed at least 500 pounds. If an ordinary chef were to roast it, they would need to roast it for a period of time and eat the cooked meat on the outside first before continuing to roast it. Of course, I didn't need to do that. There were two important aspects to roasting meat. One was the control of the fire. The other one, it was the seasoning. Beef doesn't smell like mutton, so roasting a cow requires a lot of attention to seasoning. While speaking, Nianbing stopped mixing the spices and waved her left hand. With a boom, a huge flame engulfed the entire cow. Fatso was obviously used to it, but it gave the other Dragon King a fright. Nianbing smiled slightly and said, Don't worry, this is just to get rid of the dirt. It will make the beef cleaner. As soon as she finished speaking, a layer of frost covered the cow's body, and the flame was extinguished, leaving a layer of black carbon on the surface of the cow. Seeing the black cow, Caradiris couldn't help but ask, Can this thing be eaten? You said you were a good chef, but I don't think so. Fatso laughed. He said, Then don't eat it later, but I know you're thick-skinned, and I'm afraid you won't be able to resist in the end. Nianbing, show them your prowess. Nianbing smiled and said, The quality of the food can only be seen after it's completely cooked. As a chef, one's mentality is very important, and I won't be affected by the outside world. The appearance of fire and ice will make the surface of the beef more tender, and the crispy skin will be more fragrant. At the same time, it will be easier to add flavor. A large brush appeared in Nianbing's hand, and after dipping it in the spices, it first brushed the already hollowed-out cow's body. The spices were picked out with the brush and evenly spread into the cow's stomach. The spices didn't emit a trace of fragrance. Nianbing's movements were very fast. One hand opened the cow's stomach, and the other hand quickly turned his wrist. His movements were like moving clouds and flowing water, without any pause, and every turn of his wrist was perfectly connected. After a while, the inside of the cow's stomach was completely brushed. Nian Bing wasn't in a hurry to do the next step, and with a low shout, a scorching flame rose from the ground, and at the same time, he signaled to Fatso. Fatso immediately understood. Originally, he was using one hand to lift the cow, but now he was using both hands and slowly turned his wrist so that the cow's body was evenly heated. Nian Bing didn't think a way to remove the carbon layer on the cow's body and just let it roast in his magic flame. After a while, when the cow's body was evenly heated, Nian Bing said to Fatso, "Pay attention, I want to increase the heat of the flame. You need to use your dou qi to protect the cow's body, and don't let the flame continue to burn, but you also need to let the heat in." Roasting a cow wasn't like roasting other small animals, and using ordinary flames to roast it, it might not be cooked even after a day. Fatso nodded, and a layer of faint yellow light enveloped the cow's body. The moment the dou qi appeared, Nian Bing softly chanted 2 lines of incantation, and the light changed, and the color of the flame suddenly turned blue. Wisps of steam continuously rose from the cow's body, and under the roasting heat, the layer of black carbon gradually fell off, and under the rapid roasting heat, the cow's body turned into a light yellow color, and a faint barbecued meat aroma spread out. Nian Bing didn't rush to start. He was still waiting. When cooking, the control of the flame must be extremely precise, and only then could the best food be produced. Sasari sat on the side in silence, and Kadiri's and Karadiris' eyes were completely attracted by the roasted cow, especially Kadiri's, who had already begun to swallow his saliva. Nian Bing suddenly moved, and his hand brought along a mirage, and a red light naturally jumped into the mirage, and the cow's body was still rotating. The red mirage seemed to have lightly touched the cow's body, and there was no change at all. In an instant, the flames on the ground that were supported by magic turned back to red, and the red light that jumped like a fairy in Nian Bing's hand disappeared at the same time. No one saw clearly what Nian Bing did, even though everyone present except Nian Bing was a god-tier Dragon King. They also couldn't see clearly how fast Nian Bing's hand was. Ever since Nian Bing's spiritual power and physical strength had greatly improved, his Rain Dragon's dance knife technique had reached great success, and even he couldn't see clearly how fast his own hand was. Of course, if he wanted to see clearly, it wouldn't be difficult, but he would need to use his third eye to do so. The #1 knife technique in the world of cooking had been completely integrated into Nian Bing's cooking, and he had already reached the realm of phantom knife that Cha Ji had told him about when he taught him cooking. The knife moved according to one's heart, and he could control everything on the knife purely by feeling. There was no trace of sound, and once the knife was in his hand, it was as if it had become one with his body. The flames had changed from true fire to flexible fire, and the temperature had greatly decreased. Nian Bing moved, and no one knew when his hands had changed into a condiment box and a big brush, and he flipped his wrists. He quickly brushed a layer of seasoning on the cow's body. The seasoning itself didn't seem to have any fragrance, but under the roasting of the fire, the rich aroma of the meat mixed with the seasoning rose up, and the surrounding area was filled with the aroma of the roasted meat. Fatso, who was rotating the branches, was stunned, and his nose kept inhaling the aroma of the meat, as if he wanted to smell until he was full. Minutes and seconds passed, and Nian Bing was very calm. Everything was under his control due to his proficiency in cooking. When the aroma became stronger, and the cow's body began to drip with oil, he changed the magic flame back to true blue fire, and after 3 cycles of applying seasoning, the cow's body was much smaller than before. However, the aroma almost spread to the entire valley. For a moment, all the carnivores in the valley were attracted to the vicinity, but they didn't dare to approach because the Dragon King's dragon aura was too strong. At this moment, even Sasari's, who had a cold expression, had his eyes on the golden cow's body. They were all waiting for the final ripening of the beef. There were marks on the golden cow's body, and they were all caused by the righteous Yangblade. Nian Bing cleaned the condiment box and the brush with ice water and put them in a space ring. He looked at the cow's body carefully and nodded slightly. It's almost ready to eat. As he said that, he made the first move. He immediately took out the righteous yang blade and used magic to force the blade to cut a big piece of roasted meat and used a branch to pick it up. This piece of meat was enough for him to eat. As soon as Nian Bing finished his actions, 3 figures had already pounced on him. Fatso let out a strange cry and immediately grabbed the cow's 2 hind legs, turned around, and wanted to run. However, he was not as fast as Sasaris and the others. Karadiris was the first to arrive, but there was a blue halo in his hands. He pulled hard, and one of the cow's front legs was already torn off with a large amount of beef. For a moment, steam rose, and a rich aroma filled the air. What surprised the Dragon King was that the cow's stomach was also golden. Karadiris purposely went easy on Sasaris, and Kadiris had already caught up. The 2 brothers hit each other with their palms, and with a bang, Karadiris was stronger. He immediately pulled the cow's other front leg off. Kadiris only had time to grab a piece of beef with his bare hands, and the delicious food he received was much less than his brother's. At this moment, a bright laugh sounded. Coming back early is not as good as coming back at the right time. Such fragrant meat. Before Fatso could react, he felt a sudden heat in his left hand. He subconsciously let go, and one of the cow's hind legs had already changed hands. Garamandes' familiar figure appeared beside him. The 2 of them pulled hard at the same time, and immediately the cow was split into 2 halves. After snatching the beef, except for the poor Kadiris, the other 4 Dragon King released a layer of light that belonged to their own element. Although Nian Bing could not tell whether it was magic or combat energy, she could clearly feel the strength of it. Kadiris looked at the others with a bitter face. Damn, you guys are too unkind. You actually left me such a small piece of meat. Fatso laughed mischievously and said, Who told you not to work hard? This is the difference in strength. He was the most complacent of all. Although Garamandes had snatched a lot of the meat in the end, he had the advantage of being close to Garamandes. He had gotten the most meat from the right hind leg and the attached meat. Immediately, he began to eat happily. Nian Bing looked at the 5 Dragon King fighting over the food. She could not help but think of the time when she was learning from Jia Ji. Whenever she ate a little more, Jia Ji would say that she was like a hungry wolf. Compared to the current situation, a hungry wolf was nothing. These were hungry dragons, and there were as many as 5 of them. Although she did not know how big their stomachs were, she thought that each of them had the strength to eat a cow. At this moment, a gloomy voice came from the cave. Give me some beef. Demand Teddy is very weak. She needs to replenish some nutrition. Along with the voice, a tall figure walked out of the cave. What followed was an ice-cold aura. It was not cold, but a gloomy coldness that came from her bones. Looking at the man with an evil aura in front of her, Nian Bing knew without asking that he was the Dark Dragon King of the 7 Dragon Kings. She could not help but curiously look at him a few more times. Garamandes was about to eat when he heard the Dark Dragon King's words. Kadiri still could not change his bad habit. He laughed mischievously and said, This is the first time I heard the word thanks from Kadiris. Did I hear wrongly? I got the least just now. Don't think about my delicious food. Hee. When exactly is Demand Teddy going to give birth? Kadiris' gaze turned cold. Stop talking nonsense. If you annoy me, I will eat your meat too. Although his expression was somewhat gloomy, it was hard to conceal the fatigue on his face. He was worried sick about Demand Teddy giving birth to a child. A dragon's child needed thousands of years of gestation, and the last part of the birth process was the most dangerous. It required constant protection. Demand Teddy was his most beloved. For thousands of years, for the sake of their child, Kadiris had always been by her side. He was afraid that something would happen to his beloved wife. With a flash, Garamandes arrived in front of Kadiris and handed over the beef leg in his hand. I will give this to her. Don't worry, I haven't eaten a single bite. Kadiris' gaze moved. Among the 7 Dragon Kings, he had fought with Garamandes countless times. Most of the time, it was because of Demand Teddy. The 2 had always been incompatible, But after all, there was no real hatred between them. Kadires nodded and said, I will remember this favor. I thank you on behalf of Demanteti. Garamandes said indifferently, although I don't like you, we are after all a family. For so many years, I have always wanted to surpass you in all aspects. I also always thought that I would never lose to you in any aspect. But now, I have to admit that she was right to choose you. You are a qualified husband. Don't worry, I will not harass you in the future. Kadires was stunned for a moment. Garamandes, when did you change? His love rival's sudden show of goodwill made him a little uncomfortable. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Garamandes smiled faintly and said, She is already your wife. What's the use of thinking about her? It is better to open up and pursue more beautiful things. Go quickly. If the beef is cold, the taste will be much worse. I think Demanteti will definitely love it. This beef is made by the most outstanding human chef. Dark Dragon King Kadires looked deeply at Fire Dragon King Garamandes, then turned around and walked towards the cave. When he was about to re-enter the cave, he suddenly stopped and turned towards Nian Bing, who was looking at him not far away, and said, Thank you. Demanteti hasn't wanted to eat anything for a long time. The beef you roasted looks pretty good. After saying that, he turned around and walked back into the cave. Count Dillis laughed mischievously and said, Human, I have lived for so many years and have never been thanked by him. I didn't expect him to thank you as soon as you came. It is really unfair, but your roasted beef is really good. Garamandes said unhappily, Eating isn't enough to shut your mouth. Be careful that I don't steal it from you. Hearing this, Caudilus hurriedly increased his speed of swallowing. Sure enough, he stopped talking. Garamandes turned his gaze towards Fatso, who was wolfing down his food, revealing a malicious look. Feeling his gaze, Fatso's heart trembled and said somewhat helplessly, Okay, I'll give you some. Don't look at me like that, as if you have that kind of hobby. After saying that, he tore off half of the meat and threw it to Garamandes. Garamandes took the meat and scolded jokingly, You damned Fatso. Even if I have that kind of hobby, I wouldn't like you. With your figure. Humph. This meat was roasted by my brother. Naturally, I should have a share. Seeing everything that happened between the 7 Dragon Kings, Nianbing couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. Although they also quarreled and fought, but the feelings between each other were inadvertently revealed. Thinking about how Fatso rushed over day and night as soon as he received the distress signal, he couldn't help but think in his heart, if humans could be like these Dragon Kings, perhaps there would be no more wars between humans. The meat was quickly finished. Garamandes and the other Dragon Kings' gazes fell on Fatso. Fatso hurriedly stuffed the last mouthful of beef into his mouth. Why are you looking at me? I only brought 1 cow. Caudilus said, Only a fool would believe you. Hurry up and contribute to us. This beef is really fragrant. Human, how did you do it? The same piece of beef can produce so many different fragrances. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, Using a quick fire to roast the meat is originally unable to produce the best fragrance. But during the roasting process, not only did I add all kinds of special seasonings, I also use a knife to cut hundreds of cuts on the cow's body, allowing the seasonings to penetrate deeply into the meat. At the same time, I also injected fire elements into the cow's body, so during the roasting process, every part of the cow's body can be evenly heated, so the taste is naturally good. You're a Caudilus, right? Actually, the roasted cow's taste can't be said to be the best. After all, there's a limit to the ingredients. Unfortunately, I don't have the best kind of meat. Caudilus' eyes lit up and said, What kind of meat? Hurry up and tell me. As long as it's available on this continent, I have a way to get it for you. Nian Bing smiled and said, Of course, you are a Dragon King. This kind of delicacy, you can definitely get it, and that is dragon meat. Haven't you heard of the saying, dragon meat in the sky, donkey meat on the ground? If I can roast you, I think that the taste will be very good. Previously, Caudilus had questioned his culinary skills, so it was a good time to take revenge. After all, Garamandes was here. As expected, Caudilus was furious when he heard this. Stinky brat, you actually want to roast me? I'll roast you first. A ball of surging flames suddenly appeared, sweeping towards Nianbing. Nianbing thought to herself, mimicry magic. Unfortunately, a dragon's mimicry magic could only be used up to the 9th level, and Caudilus clearly didn't have any killing intent, so this fire magic was only at the 6th level. The innate domain appeared naturally. A rainbow light suddenly flashed, and the red light dimmed. It had already swallowed Caudilus' fire attack, and Nianbing's innate domain only fluctuated slightly. Garamandi's figure flashed and appeared in front of Nianbing, ignoring Caudilus, using his own body to block Nianbing, and said to him, "Aren't you going to ask where I sent Feng Nu?" Nianbing smiled slightly, looked at him and said, "Do I need to ask?" His gaze revealed his trust. Garamandes was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, "Yes. No need to ask. No need to ask." Nianbing said, "From now on, you guys don't leave the 50 feet radius of the cave entrance. I will go and arrange some things. I think it will be useful to deal with the enemy." After saying that, he turned and walked outside. Garamandes was just about to stop Nianbing, but was stopped by the Wind Dragon King Caradiris. Caradiris smiled slightly and said, "If my guess is right, his arrangements are indeed very useful." Only when night fell did Nianbing return to the cave entrance. At this time, he was clearly very tired and directly sat down at the cave entrance. Without saying a word, he immediately entered a state of cultivation. Ever since he was able to cultivate innate, Nianbing discovered that as long as he could absorb the innate qi between heaven and earth, even if he didn't eat or drink, he wouldn't feel any hunger or thirst. The 5 Dragon Kings were arranged in a formation of 3 behind 2, and together with Nianbing at the cave entrance were Fatso, Space Dragon King Caudilus, and Garamandes was sitting cross-legged in front of Nianbing, and on his left and right were the Ice Dragon King, Sasaris, and the Wind Dragon King, respectively. Being in the center of the 5 Dragon Kings, and with the constant light and dark auras behind him, the 7 elements were abnormally rich. The large amount of mana that he had consumed before was replenishing at a speed that even surprised Nianbing. If he could continue to cultivate like this, reaching the realm of Archmage would be a very easy matter. In the state of cultivation, Nianbing deliberately closed his heaven's eye. This allowed the innate qi to completely circulate within his body. Absorbing the rich magic elements, he felt like a fish in water, and very quickly immersed himself in the wonderful state of cultivation. The innate domain was actually a manifestation of one's own energy. Following the cultivation of the innate domain, Nianbing gradually understood the origin of his innate domain. The most basic reason for him to be able to possess the innate domain was the body that his parents had given him. His parents were of the 2 attributes of water and fire, and he had inherited the abilities of these 2 attributes, which left him with an extremely good foundation. Cultivating magic from a young age allowed his body to continuously absorb the energy brought about by the magic elements, especially after he had obtained the Stone of Fire and the Stone of Ice Goddess. The absorption process became even faster. As time passed, he gradually obtained magic blades one after another. Although he couldn't completely use their energy at that time, these magic blades have been imperceptibly transforming his body. Through the enormous amount of energy they possessed, his foundation gradually became firmer. Not long ago, he had opened his Heaven's Eye acupoint and was able to absorb the innate qi between heaven and earth. This not only allowed his magic to reach a new level, but also allowed his body to enter the innate realm from the Hotian realm. Absorbing large amounts of energy from the 7 magic blades, the foundation of the innate domain that had always been in his body also continuously improved under this kind of cultivation. After 3 months of Fatso's torture, the innate domain had finally been successfully awakened. The reason why his innate domain was so strange was related to the 7 magic blades, Fatso's divine power, and his own body. The effects of its amplification, defense, and weakening abilities had already pushed him to the level where he could contend against an Archmage. Time passed unknowingly. The 5 dragon kings were ancient mutated beasts that had lived for tens of thousands of years. Naturally, they wouldn't care about such a small amount of time. Nian Bing had also forgotten about the existence of time during this wonderful cultivation process. There were 7 physical energy spheres that were rotating at 2 different speeds in his body, and they were constantly expanding. The effects of forgetting about time and fully immersing himself in cultivation were definitely the most obvious. After an unknown amount of time, a wretched cry filled with shock came from within the cave. The entire mountain seemed to be shaken by it. The huge sound wave caused the 5 dragon kings to open their eyes at the same time. Galamandi's whole body trembled, and his expression was already somewhat flustered. They all knew that the radiant dragon king Diamanti was about to give birth, the first of the 7 dragon kings to be born. The appearance of the sound wave and the change in the magic aura in the surroundings caused Nian Bing to wake up from her meditation. The benefits of the Tian Yin acupoint were gradually being unlocked. One of the abilities was to keep one's mind inward, which allowed him to not be disturbed in the process of cultivation. Once there was a change in the outside world, the energy aura would affect the Tian Yin acupoint, allowing Nian Bing to wake up in time. He opened his eyes in confusion and asked subconsciously, "What was that sound just now?" As soon as the words left his mouth, another miserable cry was heard, this time even more intense than before. Garamandes said in a deep voice, "Demand Teddy is about to give birth. From now on, we have to focus on defense. Even if it's us, the Dragon King, it will take at least 3 to 7 days to hatch a dragon egg. During this period, Demand Teddy will be extremely weak. Kagiasis will have to do his best to help her tide over this difficult period. And what we have to do is to prevent all living things from disturbing them." Screech. The second miserable cry was heard at this time. Demand Teddy's voice sounded somewhat hoarse. At the same time, Kagiasis' deep and hurried breathing could be heard from the depths of the cave. Suddenly, Garamandi's complexion changed. Not good. Demand Teddy has the purest light physique. It will be much more difficult for her to give birth to a dragon child with Kagiasis than for ordinary dragons. And right now, it's useless for Kagiasis to guard her. As the Dark Dragon King, his energy will only harm Demand Teddy. Quick, let's go in and help. Sure enough, Kagiasis' voice came from the depths of the cave. His voice had already lost its gloomy aura and was full of anxiety. "Come in quickly. I'm afraid Demand Teddy is having a difficult birth." 5 Dragon King frowned at the same time. At this time, the enemy could come at any time. And if Demand Teddy was having a difficult birth, the situation would become very difficult to say. 5 Dragon King rushed into the cave at the fastest speed. Garamandes was afraid that Nian Bing would be lost outside, so he carried her under his arm. Soon, they arrived at the interior of the cave. The deeper they went into the cave, the wider the surroundings became. When they arrived at the depths of the cave, Nian Bing discovered that the situation here was no different from Garamandi's cave. It was just that there was no strange magical aura here, but it was full of vigorous vitality. Perhaps it was because of this enormous vitality that the Dark Dragon King and Light Dragon King chose to give birth here. After all, whether it was light or dark aura, any aura would cause harm to one of them. In the center of the cave, a beautiful giant golden dragon was crawling. Her whole body was emitting an intense golden radiance. The surging aura of light constantly surrounded her body, flickering between light and dark. Light Dragon King Demand Teddy closed her eyes in pain. Her huge body was constantly trembling. Every time she trembled, some golden liquid would flow out from her body. Dark Dragon King Kagiasis' face was full of anxiety, but he couldn't help. Garamandes flew to Kagiasis' side and whispered, "What's going on? Why is she having a difficult birth?" Kagiasis bitterly said, "I don't know. Maybe it's because our energy is too extreme and too enormous. The energy aura of the childborn is very strange. Demand Teddy, and I've already felt it, but it wasn't until a few days ago when those people attacked that this feeling suddenly became stronger. Demanteti's vitality is constantly decreasing, and she can't give birth to dragon eggs. I'm afraid she's having a difficult birth. What should we do? What should we do now? Garamandes, help her, help her. Kajias's heart is already in chaos because the person he loves the most is facing a life-threatening crisis. Chapter 122. Garamandes also had a bitter smile on his face. Looking at the other Dragon King, he said, "Don't worry, it's useless to be anxious at this time. We also don't know how to help you. If you talk about killing enemies or defending against enemies, we will naturally do our best. But when it comes to giving birth, do you think we have any experience? Moreover, the situation of the two of you is so strange. I'm afraid only the Dragon God knows what to do." Kagiosis anxiously said, "Then what should we do now?" The energy fluctuations in Demanteti's body are very strong, and the energy fluctuations are very strange. The two of us are unable to control this energy. If this continues, I'm afraid she won't be able to hold on. With Demanteti's situation, it's impossible for the seven of us to contact the Dragon God. What should we do? What should we do now? Can I give it a try? Nian Bing, who had been standing at the side all this time, suddenly spoke. Apart from Demanteti, the 6 Dragon Kings' gazes immediately focused on her. Kagiosis revealed a doubtful and inquiring look. Nian Bing said, "Since you can't do anything now, why don't you let me give it a try? I think your child should have inherited the 2 extreme energies of light and darkness, resulting in such a mutation. I am a magician of the same origin of ice and fire. I have some experience in fusing extreme magical energies. Perhaps I can find a way to help the Light Dragon King. As long as the method works, you should be able to save her if you all act together." Indeed, although the 7 Dragon Kings could use mimicry magic, their mimicry magic was different from Nian Bing's. Nian Bing used the same origin of ice and fire to directly attract the magical energies of other elements for her own use. But the 7 Dragon Kings directly used their own powerful elemental energy to imitate the effects of other elements' magic. In essence, they were different to cope with the problem of fusing extreme magical energies. No matter how strong the 7 Dragon Kings were, they were not as knowledgeable as Nian Bing. Nian Bing had only suggested this because she had sensed the energy changes in Demanteti, the Light Dragon King. At this time, Kajios was already desperate. Even if there was only a little hope, he was unwilling to give up. He hurriedly said, "Okay, then you can try first. As long as you can save my wife and child, I can agree to any conditions you have." His breathing became more rapid, and a cold, dark aura flickered, as if it could erupt at any time. Nian Bing walked towards Demanteti and said, "I don't need you to repay anything. Garamandes is my friend, and you are his friend. What if friends need to repay each other for helping each other?" Although the light aura around Demanteti was very unstable, being bathed in the light made Ling Nian Bing feel very comfortable. When he was about 3 meters away from Demanteti, gentle energy stopped him from moving forward. That was Demanteti's own defensive power. Nian Bing's eyes flashed, and she naturally opened her innate domain. A 7-colored radiance floated out and surrounded her body. Under Nian Bing's control, the light element in the innate domain was immediately weakened. She took a few steps forward. After entering Demanteti's defensive range, Demanteti's body trembled, and her aura became even more unstable. At this time, the 6 Dragon Kings' eyes were all focused on Nian Bing. Kajios suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and hoped for a miracle. Nian Bing said softly, "Light Dragon King, please don't reject my energy. Believe me, I am a friend of Garamandes, and I am here to help you." After saying that, he immediately expanded his innate domain, enveloping Demanteti's body. The 7 types of energy in the heavenly domain instantly became balanced, and the 7 types of magic elements simultaneously spread towards Demanteti's body. After opening his heavenly eye and entering Demanteti's body through the 7 types of magic elements, Nian Bing's heavenly eye could clearly see the situation inside Demanteti's body. Just as he expected, Demanteti was already very weak. It wasn't because her energy was weak. Her light energy was extremely powerful, but the inside of her body was unceasingly being torn apart by the extreme energy. That extreme energy appeared in her lower abdomen. Nian Bing knew that with Demanteti's strength, she was naturally able to completely crush and expel this energy from her body. However, she was clearly unwilling to do so, because if she did so, the dragon child that she and Dark Dragon King Kageos had nurtured for 1,000 years would also be finished. Therefore, she was willing to endure intense pain and was unwilling to harm her own child. At this time, the meridians and flesh in the vicinity of the dragon egg were already somewhat eroded by the extreme energy. This was also the reason why there was golden blood flowing out of Demanteti's body. The great maternal love infected Nian Bing's heart, and he no longer hesitated. Under the guidance of the heavenly eye, he controlled his 7 types of energy and carefully brought it to Demanteti's lower abdomen. He enveloped the energy that had mutated due to the extreme repulsion. Relying on the 7 types of magical elements and the miraculous effects of the heavenly eye domain, Nian Bing weakened the negative effects of the extreme energy. He used his domain to forcefully envelop the dragon egg in Demanteti's body, slowly absorbing and weakening it. The 7 types of magical elements not only isolated Demanteti from the intense pain, but also protected the dragon egg. Although the extreme energy was still wreaking havoc after being weakened, producing all kinds of mutations within the dragon egg, as long as Nian Bing's heavenly eye domain was still present, it would no longer harm Demanteti's body. At this time, Nian Bing was already feeling a little strained. After all, this was the first time he was controlling the heavenly eye domain like this. Demanteti's body was too strong, and although she tried her best to let go of her body and mind, it still affected Nian Bing's domain quite a bit. In addition, the strange energy attached to the dragon egg was wreaking havoc, which consumed a large amount of Nian Bing's magical energy. Nian Bing maintained his domain while saying, "Light Dragon King, you can use the light elemental energy to repair your body. With my domain around, I guarantee that your child won't be harmed. Only by perfecting your body can you give birth to it." Demanteti's body stopped trembling as the pain disappeared. She seemed to heave a sigh of relief as she gasped for air. Her tightly shut dragon eyes slowly opened, and she glanced at Nian Bing gratefully. The light elemental energy that she had been suppressing surged forth, repairing the damage to her lower abdomen. The golden light gradually turned into a holy white light, and the light elemental energy around her body was no longer as unstable as before. Demanteti's body began to repair due to the burst of light elemental energy. The impact on Nian Bing's domain became even greater. Nian Bing gritted his teeth and endured while summoning his 7 magic swords. Through the effect of the 7 top-grade magic gems on the swords, he was barely able to stabilize his heavenly eye domain. Kageosis, Garamandes, and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Demanteti's situation had taken a turn for the better. Kageosis grabbed Garamandes' shoulder and revealed an expression of deep gratitude. Thank you, Garamandes. If not for this friend of yours, I'm afraid." Garamandes smiled faintly and said, "Don't say so much. As long as Demanteti is fine, it's fine." Fatso laughed and said, Congratulations, Kageosis. I'm afraid you're going to be a father soon. You should also thank me. Nian Bing was brought here by me." Diamantes' light energy was truly astonishing. The damage to his body was so severe, but under the effect of the light energy, he was able to rapidly repair it. Beads of sweat had already started to drip from Nian Bing's forehead. While continuously gathering magic through the 7 blades, he bitterly held on. He was very clear that Diamantes' energy was too powerful. Coupled with the energy of that egg, it was impossible for him to help Demanteti give birth to the child with his current heavenly eye domain. After all, any Dragon King was much stronger than him. Fortunately, now that he had ascertained the situation, it would be much easier to do this next step. Nian Bing took a deep breath and stabilized his domain with all his strength. He said in a deep voice, "Seven Dragon Kings, you have to pay attention to what I'm saying now. Wait a moment, you'll take over my current job. My energy is too weak to help the Light Dragon King give birth to the child. The seven of you have to work together to give birth to the child. Moreover, according to my observations, the child of the Light and Dark Dragon King is very strange. Its energy doesn't belong to any of the seven elements. It should be a variant energy. Therefore, not only do you have to help the Light Dragon King give birth to the dragon egg, you also have to help her hatch it. Only with the combined strength of the seven of you can you do all this. Otherwise, even if you can save the Light Dragon King, you won't be able to save the child. I'll use my innate domain to envelop the dragon egg and use it to weaken the variant energy within it, so that it won't affect the Light Dragon King's body. Although your abilities can't be weakened, with the seven of you, you can completely control the various energy fluctuations of the dragon egg. What you have to do is very simple. At the same time, inject your energy into the Light Dragon King's body and protect the dragon egg at the lower abdomen. As long as the seven types of energy are balanced, coupled with the Light Dragon King's physical strength, it won't be difficult to give birth to the child. Do you understand what I mean? Kagiosi nodded and said, "You're saying that the seven of us have to work together to protect the dragon egg with the seven types of energy, and then help Demanteti give birth to it." Garamandes said with some worry, "Must we use the seven types of energy? Can't we use a few less? In this kind of situation, if the seven of us help Demanteti, who will protect it?" As soon as Garamandes said this, the cave immediately became silent. They all knew how powerful the enemy was. Without four or more Dragon Kings, it was impossible to resist the enemy's attack. However, Demanteti's situation was so dangerous. For a moment, all the Dragon Kings fell into a dilemma. They all looked at Nian Bing, hoping that at least one or two Dragon Kings would not participate in the process of helping. Nian Bing shook her head helplessly and said, "That's impossible. The energy of this dragon egg is extremely strange. Only by using the seven types of energy at the same time and maintaining a balanced state can it be suppressed. If one type of energy is missing, it will be destroyed. Therefore, all seven types of energy must be used at the same time. Garamandes, do you trust me?" Garamandes nodded and said, "Of course we trust you. You've already won our trust with your own actions. Tell us, what else can we do?" Nian Bing gritted her teeth and said, "If you trust me, then leave the task of defense to me. However, I hope that you can give me the remaining 4 Miortis sealing bottles. Only with them can I protect you. The enemy's main goal is these 4 bottles, not to destroy you. If there is no other choice, I would rather destroy the remaining 4 bottles than give them to them. I have already arranged more than 10 eternal sleep domains around this mountain. With these domains and the bottles I control, I should be able to hold on for a while. During this time, you must do your best to hatch the dragon egg. As soon as the little Dragon King is born, immediately come and help me repel the enemy. You must decide quickly. My domain can't hold on for much longer." The 6 Dragon Kings looked at each other in dismay. No one uttered a word. Katerios said resolutely, "Nian Bing, thank you for your kindness. I trust you." After saying that, a black light flashed in his hand, and a bottle of Miortis sealing bottles appeared. The Ice Dragon King and Wind Dragon King sighed at the same time, and also took out the bottles they were guarding. Demanteti spat out a mouthful of golden light and gathered 4 bottles. Nian Bing took a deep breath and consolidated her domain once again. She said to the 7 Dragon Kings, "All right, you can begin. First, carefully transfer the energy into the Light Dragon King's body and coordinate it with her own energy. Control the strength of the energy to be exactly the same, then take over my current position." At this time, Demanteti's injuries had already healed under the enormous amount of light energy. The 6 Dragon Kings, led by Katerios, didn't dare to be negligent. Their figures flashed, and each of their palms pressed on Demanteti's body from 6 different directions. They knew that every minute they gained would increase the probability of successfully hatching the little Dragon King. The strength of the 7 Dragon Kings was at least equivalent to 7 God-tier masters. Furthermore, Their dragon magic had its own unique characteristics. They had lived on this continent for more than 10,000 years. Although they would only meet once in a while, they had already reached a tacit understanding with each other. Bing didn't have to wait for too long. 7 abundant and powerful energy auras had already formed a layer of barrier and surrounded her. Bing breathed a sigh of relief. She carefully withdrew her innate domain and let the 7 Dragon Kings take over her previous position. However, she was afraid that the 7 Dragon Kings wouldn't be able to control it well, so she still used her sky's eye to observe the situation inside Demanteti's body. Her worries were completely unnecessary. The 7 Dragon Kings' control of energy had already reached an extremely high level. With the 7 of them working together, they could easily control the energy around the dragon egg. Under the squirming of Demanteti's body, the dragon egg released and absorbed the mutated energy while slowly expelling it. After completely withdrawing her magic aura and the ability of her sky's eye, Bing felt weak all over. After all, she had used up too much energy just now. She didn't dare to be negligent. She hurriedly put the 4 sealing bottles of Moodos that the Dragon Kings took out into her space ring. She stopped breathing and absorbed the surrounding innate aura and magic elements. Since she had taken over the heavy responsibility of defending, she had to adjust her condition. She had never seen a lich before, but she more or less knew how powerful a Dark Witch was. At that time, even Hillard was terrified by the appearance of the Dark Witch. She was afraid that it would be very difficult for her to deal with these 2 powerful guys. Now, she could only hope that the magic formations she had set up would be effective. Just as Bing was recovering his mana anxiously, there was a man-made ice cave not far from the valley that was filled with a dark and evil aura. Dark Witch Safin had completely recovered her strength with the help of her master, Evil Moon. A powerful aura was faintly discernible in the dark mist. Evil Lord, should we continue? Now that the 7 Dragon Kings have all gathered, I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to gain any advantage. With your ability, you can at most deal with 2 or 3 Dragon Kings at the same time. In addition to the Dark Dragon King who is guarding the Light Dragon King, there are at least 5 Dragon Kings in charge of guarding. As long as they don't come out, it will be very difficult for us to do anything. Evil Moon stood with his hands behind his back. The surrounding cold didn't affect him at all. Safin's judgment was very accurate. Although the Light Dragon King, who was the greatest threat to him among the 7 Dragon Kings, couldn't attack because she was giving birth, the other Dragon King's draconic magic wasn't a joke either. After planning for so many years, he didn't want to fail at the last step. However, he was unwilling to give up just like that. Walking back and forth in the cave, Evil Moon was also constantly thinking, should he attack or give up? He was unwilling. He was really unwilling. If he could obtain all of the sealing bottles of Moodos, he would be able to open the lost country of his dreams. At that time, the promise from back then would be fulfilled, and all his wishes would become possible. However, the 7 Dragon Kings were definitely the strongest on this continent. With all of the 7 Dragon Kings here, even if 2 of them didn't participate in the battle, he was afraid. Lord, Evil Lord, it's better to decide early. I already felt the fluctuation of life aura just now. I'm afraid that the Light Dragon is about to give birth. We still have 3 days. According to my estimation, the Light Dragon's birth and incubation will take at least 3 days to complete. A black figure walked out from a dark corner and came directly to Evil Moon's side. Leaning gently on him, it was the vampire Prince Cena. Evil Moon hugged Cena's slender waist. After a moment of silence, he said, "This operation can't be canceled. Our appearance the day before yesterday has already made the 7 Dragon Kings vigilant and let go of this opportunity. It's very likely that there won't be another chance. So even if there are sacrifices, we have to act. I'll make it clear in advance. After the operation begins, if anyone flinches without my orders, don't blame me for being rude. All right, let's start preparing now. We'll act in 6 hours." Dark Wizard Safin didn't say anything else when he heard Evilmoon's decision. Even though he was a Dark Wizard, he was only one of Evilmoon's top fighters. Moreover, it was just as Evil Moon had said. If he let go of this opportunity, he probably wouldn't get another one. The evil aura kept condensing in the cave. The whole cold mountain ridge was like a storm was coming. Nian Bing sat cross-legged and meditated while observing the 7 Dragon King's actions. An hour had passed. The light Dragon King Demanteti's expression gradually changed from relaxed to nervous. Although the other 6 Dragon Kings didn't show any signs of strain, their expressions were very serious. Obviously, Demanteti was about to give birth. Nian Bing's magical energy recovered very quickly by the side of the 7 Dragon Kings. Magical elements kept condensing, and with the gathering of innate energy, the consumption caused by excessive use of the innate domain was gradually recovered. It wouldn't take too long for him to return to his best state. Suddenly, the bodies of the 7 Dragon Kings shook at the same time. A layer of faint halo floated out from the lower abdomen of the light Dragon King Demanteti. The first thing that appeared was actually a black light. Then, the black light gradually turned white and then gray. An egg-shaped object was vaguely wrapped in the light. It was the first time Nian Bing saw a dragon egg. He couldn't help but widen his eyes. The egg was about 2 feet long. The perfectly round egg emitted a gray light. The egg was very smooth. As soon as it appeared, it was immediately lifted into the air by the 7 different colored magical energy of the 7 Dragon Kings. The 7 types of energy strengthened at the same time and tightly surrounded the egg. The egg was finally born. Next, it was the process of hatching. Nian Bing secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that he had passed the first stage. He hoped that there wouldn't be any problems later. Since the egg had been born, he didn't stay in the cave anymore. He turned around and walked out. When he reached the entrance of the cave, he sat down cross-legged again and began to meditate. At the same time, he paid attention to all the movements around him. While meditating, Nian Bing secretly prayed in his heart, "Little Dragon King, you have to come out quickly. Otherwise, I'm done for." At this moment, Nian Bing felt that time was passing very slowly. Although his magical energy recovered very quickly. But even if it fully recovered, it was still impossible to face the unknown danger. After an unknown amount of time, when the magical energy in Nian Bing's body was fully recovered, he jumped up from the ground. He summoned his 7 magical blades from the space ring and inserted them into the cave entrance. He closed his eyes and focused his spiritual energy on the Tian Yin acupoint, paying attention to all the movements around him. Suddenly, Nian Bing's spiritual energy moved. He abruptly opened his eyes and sighed in his heart. What was to come had still come. Although he hoped that the danger would stay away from him and that he could live a better life, since what was to come had already come, he wouldn't shrink back. At this moment, his mood had calmed down. He stood there calmly and waited. "No, bastard." Safen roared. A huge amount of energy appeared out of nowhere and actually sucked away his spiritual energy. Although the Nether Witch's spiritual energy wasn't any weaker than the Dragon God's, he still couldn't withstand this kind of extraction. More than 10 Nether demons had already fallen to the ground and lost the ability to move. Most of the subordinates brought by the vampire Princina were also lying on the ground. Their spiritual energy was much weaker. Suddenly losing it caused a huge burden on their bodies. Among all of them, only Evil Moon and the vampire Princina weren't affected. A faint blue light flashed in Evil Moon's eyes. He let out a deep and gloomy roar. A circle of dark green light floated out and enveloped all of his subordinates. Only then did it isolate their spiritual energy. What a brilliant magic array. Since when did these Dragon King learn how to set up magic arrays? This is obviously prepared for us. Streaks of dark green light floated out and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Nian Bing, who was at the entrance of the cave, was shocked. His consciousness blurred for a moment. He said in horror, "How cruel. They actually destroyed 4 of my eternal sleep. Are these guys even human? How do they do it?" He had always been very confident in the eternal sleep magic array. He didn't expect that the magic array in front of him would be broken so easily. Of course, he didn't know that as the evil lord, Evilmoon's heart was filled with anger. The originally powerful dark forces under his command had lost more than 30% of their combat power because of this hidden magic array. The appearance of the eternal sleep magic array didn't dispel Evilmund's idea of advancing. Instead, it strengthened his confidence. This was because he thought that as proud dragons, they actually knew how to use magic arrays. Obviously, there was a reason. He didn't know what the reason was, but it should be unfavorable to the Dragon King. The valley that was as warm as spring gradually became a little cold. It wasn't cold air, but a faint chill. Nian Bing was waiting for the enemy's arrival. He had already drawn a hexagram of ice and fire on the ground at the entrance of the cave. At this moment, he couldn't help but miss his hedgehog vest. If he had the magic scroll of that vest, perhaps he could resist for a while longer. There was still no movement in the cave. Obviously, it was impossible to hatch successfully in a short time. The ground began to tremble slightly. Nian Bing's heart trembled. He knew that the enemy had arrived. Suddenly, just a few dozen feet in front of him, cracks appeared on the ground. White bone claws stretched out from the cracks. The cracking sounds were accompanied by a strong sense of fear. One by one, skeletons jumped out from the cracks. Each skeleton held a bone knife in its hand. Their movements were very slow. The position of the eyes on the skulls emitted a faint green light. The sound of bones rubbing against each other made Nian Bing's scalp tighten. It was the first time he had seen such a thing. The number of skeletons was increasing, and it seemed that they had no intention of stopping. The skeletons seemed to have noticed the vitality emitted from Nian Bing's body. One by one, they lined up neatly, raised the bone knives in their hands, and kept moving in the direction of Nian Bing. Nian Bing didn't move. He wasn't in a hurry. The psychological pressure that the skeletons brought to him was far more useful than the strength that they could show. The appearance of the skeletons filled the entire valley with an aura of death. With every step they took, Nian Bing's heart would beat faster. Finally, the psychological pressure made Nian Bing unable to endure it any longer. He opened his Tian Yin acupoint and scanned a large number of skeletons in front of him. He discovered that there was a ball of green flame in the skull of these skeletons, and this ball of flame was clearly the source of power for the skeletons to move. Nian Bing didn't know where these undead creatures came from, but he was sure that they were not his friends. Rise, holy light that pierces through heaven and earth. You represent the endless light that illuminates the earth. Transform the aura of holy light in the radiance of the same origin of ice and fire. Blossom your divine splendor. Holy light. The light that pierced through heaven and earth suddenly became bright, and a soft, milky white halo continuously condensed in front of Nian Bing. The skeletons that were originally moving forward rhythmically seemed to be afraid of this milky white light. They stopped moving forward, as if they were waiting for something. Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound came from afar. The skeletons seemed to have forgotten everything, and their originally clumsy bodies became abnormally agile. One after another, they rushed in the direction of Nian Bing. Their bones were covered in a layer of green light. Nian Bing's eyes had already turned into a milky white light. Through his Tian Yin acupoint, he could clearly see every movement of these skeletons. The milky white halo instantly blossomed, and the holy light illuminated the earth, spreading into the distance. The holy light, which was also the light of purification, had the best effect on dark creatures. Wherever the milky white halo passed, the skeletons' bodies melted like snow, turning into a ball of ashes, and disappeared under the breeze. Large numbers of skeletons continued to fall. Even Nian Bing himself didn't expect that the holy light magic could actually have such a wonderful effect. When the holy light shone on the distant cracks in the ground, those cracks actually emitted bursts of green smoke. The cracked ground slowly closed, and no more skeletons crawled out. The white halo gradually disappeared, and the valley returned to its original tranquility. If not for the cold aura becoming stronger, perhaps Nian Bing would have the illusion that nothing had happened. Clap, clap, clap. Applause suddenly sounded, and a black shadow seemed to rise from the ground, gradually appearing in front of Nian Bing, step by step walking in his direction. I was wondering how the Dragon King could arrange such an exquisite magic array. It turns out that there was a human here, and a light magician at that. It seems that you were invited by the Dragon King to help. Nian Bing knew that the main character had come, and a white light shone between his eyebrows. Through his Tian Yin acupoint, he could clearly see the figures hidden in the black fog. Walking in the front was a person shrouded in a black robe, and the one who spoke was him. Beside him, on the left, was a slender woman with abnormally fair skin. She was extremely beautiful, but she revealed a trace of demonic aura. On his right was a mass of black fog. Seeing this mass of fog, Nian Bing's heart suddenly sank. It wasn't that he hadn't seen the same thing before. Behind the three of them, there were over 100 kinds of monsters shrouded in dark aura. They already couldn't be called human, because they already didn't have the appearance and aura of a human. But Nian Bing couldn't name these dark creatures. Nian Bing didn't speak and unceasingly condensed the magic elements in the air. He just used a magic, so he needed to recover his magic power as soon as possible. "So it's you, brat," Safin angrily roared, and took the lead to rush out of the black fog. Chapter 123. Upon hearing his voice, Nian Bing also recognized him, and said in surprise, "Underworld Witch Safin, you actually didn't die? Good. It's good that you didn't die. You didn't die last time, but that doesn't mean you won't die this time. I think the courier won't let you go this time." While saying that, he pointed to the holy radiance blade on the ground. Safin's breath stagnated. Seeing the holy radiance blade, a feeling of fear rose from the depths of his soul. How could he know that the holy radiance blade, emitting a holy aura, had already lost its connection with the sacred teacher? Although the holy aura on was extremely dense, Nian Bing's strength was no longer enough to pose a threat to him. "Oh, Safin, you know each other?" Evil Moon said indifferently. Safin respectfully replied, reporting to Evil Lord, "This kid is the human I told you about. He almost destroyed my body and soul last time. He has the sacred teacher's dawn blade in his hand. It's very powerful. Last time, it was the holy flame emitted by this blade that made me so weak." He hated Nian Bing to the extreme. If he hadn't met Nian Bing, if it hadn't been for this holy radiance blade, how could he have been so weak that he was captured by Yu Yu, let alone become Evil Moon's servant? For a powerful dark creature like him, there was nothing more painful than having his freedom restricted. If it hadn't been for Evil Moon's words that moved him, he would rather self-destruct than be used by other dark creatures. At this time, seeing Nian Bing again, if he had eyes, he might have already spouted fire. Evil Moon swept a glance at the 7 blades on the ground, and his dark green eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He didn't move forward and calmly said, "Human, if you leave now, then nothing will happen. I can pretend that nothing happened. Our target is only the 7 Dragon Kings. Call them out." He didn't have any confidence in this operation and didn't want to complicate matters. Nian Bing smiled indifferently. She said disdainfully, "You want to find the 7 Dragon Kings with your small fries? I alone am enough to deal with you." "That's right. I was the one who set up the magic arrays outside, but they're just appetizers." Evil Moon looked at Nian Bing calmly and said, "In that case, don't blame me for being rude." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and 2 black shadows flew out from behind him. They rushed towards Nian Bing like lightning. If Nian Bing did not go through 3 months of baptism with the Earth Dragon King Fatso, he would definitely not be able to deal with such a fast attack. However, things were different now. No matter how fast they were, he could still see them through his heaven's eye. They were 2 giants over 3 meters tall, and their thick bodies exuded a strong, evil aura. In the process of rushing over, the deathly still gray airflow condensed into 2 long sabers, slashing at Nian Bing from both sides. Nian Bing didn't move. He wanted to give the other party an unfathomable feeling. When Evil Moon and the others appeared, he had already prepared the incantation. He watched as the 2 black shadows rushed to within 5 meters of him. Suddenly, a 7-colored light flashed, and the 7 divine blades on the ground disappeared. 7 blurry shadows crossed each other. What could be faster than the speed of energy? The full element shadow golem appeared once again. The 2 underworld demons' bodies froze in the air. In the next moment, they turned into minced meat on the ground. The wind blew. The minced meat on the ground turned into ashes and disappeared. Evil Moon frowned. Indeed, he couldn't tell how strong Nian Bing was on the surface. The 7 blades in front of Nian Bing made him very confused. Every blade exuded a strong aura. Although the 2 netherworld demons weren't very strong, they were still very strong. Although the 2 underworld demons weren't strong, their bodies were strong enough. They could instantly kill the 2 underworld demons without him knowing how to attack. Nian Bing in front of him had already attracted the evil lord's attention. It was obvious that this young human knew the underworld wizard Safin, and since he was able to guard this place, he knew how powerful they were. However, he still didn't show any intention of retreating, and it was obvious that he wasn't afraid of them, or he had some backing. Since none of the 7 Dragon Kings showed up, could this be a trap? Evil Moon hesitated. After all, he didn't have absolute confidence in this operation. Seeing that his opponent wasn't moving, Nian Bing was happy to wait. All he had to do was stall for time. The 7 shadow puppets hid behind him. These shadow puppets could absorb Xiantian Qi on their own, so they wouldn't consume his energy. Although Safin hated Nian Bing, he had a deep fear of the Holy Radiance Blade. He didn't dare to take the initiative to fight. He could only watch as Nian Bing stood there and looked at Yifeng with disdain. "Evil Lord, let me do it." Sina's charming voice sounded. Her body flashed, and she flew more than 10 feet away. She stopped not far from Nian Bing. She looked at Nian Bing from head to toe and smiled. She said, "Young man, you are very handsome. I wonder how your blood tastes?" Her eyes flashed with an evil light. She stared at Nian Bing. Nian Bing looked into her eyes and felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. He knew that something was wrong, and hurriedly closed his eyes, not daring to look into her eyes. Although he had learned a lot about dark magic these days, he was still far from being able to compare to a true dark world powerhouse like Sina. Sina giggled and dashed forward. The evil glint in her eyes grew even brighter. Just as she was about to attack Nian Bing, a silver-white light suddenly erupted from Nian Bing's forehead. Countless rays of silver-white light shot out, and Sina's body came to an abrupt halt. She cried out in pain and flew backward. Her evil eyes lost their power under the stimulation of the silver-white light. She could no longer release evil aura through her eyes. Nian Bing opened his eyes again. With the heaven's eye, he saw Sina clearly. He said indifferently, "So it's a bat. Your evil light has no effect on me. Forget it." Evil Moon said in surprise, "Heavens, eye acupoint opened. No wonder. You are a master who has opened the heaven's eye acupoint. Human, you must be from the continent of gods." Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. He didn't admit or deny it. He still had a mysterious smile on his face. He stood there calmly and looked at the group of evil beings in front of him. The seductive look in Sina's eyes disappeared. The evil coldness made the light around her dim a lot. Her evil eyes gradually turned golden. With a whoosh, a pair of blood-red wings spread out. A huge pressure suddenly appeared, as if it was on Sina's side. A gigantic demonic mouth appeared, and it seemed as if it could swallow Nian Bing at any moment. Nian Bing was shocked. He could feel Sina's power through the heaven's eye acupoint, but he couldn't retreat now. He could only look at Sina in silence and think of a countermeasure. Sina's hands formed a strange hand shape in front of her. She kept chanting in a strange voice. Traces of clear, black aura kept condensing in front of her. Nian Bing knew he couldn't wait. If he let her condense energy, once it reached the level of a forbidden spell, he wouldn't be able to resist. He wouldn't have any chance. With a thought, the light puppet floated out. The holy light on the holy brilliance blade shone brightly. It rushed in front of Sina in an instant and gently slashed at her hands. When the holy aura met the evil aura, the white light became even more holy. Nian Bing seemed to hear the fear of the evil aura in the air. The light puppet's holy brilliance blade shone with a powerful white light. It was already in front of Sina. Sina looked at the light puppet coldly. She didn't dodge. Instead, half-foot-long fingernails suddenly grew out of her 10 fingers. She flicked her right hand. Balls of dark energy slammed into the glow emitted by the holy brilliant saber. A few powerful explosions occurred in the air as the light puppet was sent flying. Even though the holy brilliant saber was the nemesis of evil, Nian Bing's strength was still too far away from it. Sina smiled sinisterly as the red wings on her back spread open. Her body seemed to glide on water as she arrived in front of Nian Bing in the blink of an eye. Every time she moved, the evil aura around her would become stronger. The Vampire Queen's power was not to be underestimated. 7 shadows flashed, and all 7 shadow puppets moved at the same time. The 7 blades burst out with lights of various elements, and the shadows intertwined to stop Sina. The biggest advantage of the shadow puppets was their speed. However, Nian Bing was shocked to discover that the speed of the vampire in front of him wasn't any slower than the shadow puppets. This was especially so when the shadow puppets attacked her. She was always able to easily dodge them as if she knew what was going on. Her delicate body constantly twisted and turned, and she was like a wisp of smoke as she shuttled between the 7 shadow puppets. The black air current sent the 7 shadow puppets flying time and time again, avoiding the sharpest side of the 7 blades as she gradually approached Nian Bing. Nian Bing was already standing there without moving. He stared at Sina, who was getting closer and closer to him. He could feel her evil aura getting stronger and stronger. He laughed bitterly in his heart. Garamandes, you have to hurry up. Sina was a little hesitant when she first attacked Nian Bing. After all, Nian Bing's strength was unfathomable. However, she relaxed a lot when she repelled the light puppets. Even the light holy blade, which was most effective against darkness, did not have enough power to push her back. It seemed that the human in front of her was not that scary. He only relied on the light puppets. The speed of the light puppets was indeed a problem for Sina. After all, they were meticulously researched by Nian Bing. Back then, even the Earth Dragon King Fatso suffered a loss. However, Sina's speed, innate bad instincts, and dodging techniques were far superior to the Earth Dragon King Fatso. In order to preserve more of her strength to deal with the 7 Dragon Kings, Sina did not use her strongest ability. She only relied on her tyrannical body and speed to close in on Nian Bing. In her mind, it would be enough if she could destroy Nian Bing. The light puppets gradually retreated under Sina's pressure. They were getting closer and closer to Nian Bing. Their energy was also gradually weakened because they could not maintain the speed of their condensation. Nian Bing wasn't in a hurry. He still didn't move. He was waiting for the best opportunity. He could only surprise his opponent once, and this was his only chance. If he couldn't severely injure his opponent, he wouldn't have another chance. Finally, Sina was 30 feet away from Nian Bing. The powerful evil aura continued to surge in Nian Bing's direction. The surging evil energy made Nian Bing's skin cold. However, he was no longer an ordinary magician. His body had been modified, so this kind of stimulation was not enough to pose a threat to him. The 30 feet distance quickly became 20 feet, and then 10 feet. Under the pressure of the evil aura, Nian Bing had already shut down his breathing. He was relying on his connate energy to maintain his breathing. Sina's body flashed 7 times in a row, and her dark magic power abruptly burst forth, forcing the 7 shadow puppets back at the same time. Her body flashed in an arc, and her right hand with long fingernails was already right in front of Nian Bing's face. Right at this moment, a rainbow halo erupted with Nian Bing at its center. Sina's originally light body suddenly sank, and she was shocked to discover that her dark magic energy was rapidly weakening. The 7 shadow puppets charged at her at the same time. Under the enhancement of the Heavenly Eye domain, the 7 shadow puppets were instantly at their most powerful state. Their 7 magic sabers were filled with surging energy, and their speed was doubled. Meanwhile, Sina's speed had been greatly reduced in her shock. This was the ultimate move Nian Bing had left for her. However, Sina was an evil creature that had been around for over 1,000 years. She was far too experienced when it came to actual combat. She couldn't care less about conserving her strength at this critical moment. The dark, evil energy in her body suddenly burst forth. Her red wings looked like they were about to bleed. A red mist of blood gushed out of them. She was trying to use her powerful energy to break free of Nian Bing's innate domain. The blood mist was extremely powerful. Not only did it reduce the effectiveness of the sky domain by more than half, but it also acted like a solid barrier that blocked the attacks of the light puppets. However, her barrier only blocked the 6 light puppets, including the light puppet. The black figure actually ignored the existence of the blood mist and floated in. With a lightning-fast slash, it heavily slashed at Sina's wings. In the intense pain, the dark energy gushed out of Sina's wounds, as if it wanted to suck her body dry. The vampire queen's tyrannical body instantly shrank, and her golden pupils returned to normal. Her beautiful face twisted with fear. She didn't know what was going on, but the dark energy she had cultivated for over 1,000 years was being continuously absorbed. The slash on her back was like a bottomless abyss that was devouring her body. After all, Evil Moon and Sina were husband and wife. Sina's situation immediately attracted his attention. His body, which was completely wrapped in a black robe, floated up, and dozens of dark green lights shot out. In the blink of an eye, they had entered Nian Bing's sky domain. Evil Moon's actions naturally attracted Nian Bing's attention. However, when the green lights entered her domain, Nian Bing found that they didn't belong to any element. Apart from delaying their attacks, she couldn't weaken them at all. Right at this moment, the shadow puppet moved on its own. The sword projection that had been slashing down on Sina's back rose into the air, and a black flame seemed to be burning on its blade. It moved at extreme speed, and it turned into a blur. It flashed through the air a dozen times in a row, and all of the green light that came into contact with the black flame were instantly incinerated. Although the sky eye area was affected to a certain extent, it wasn't too much of a hindrance. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Sina spat out a mouthful of blood and released a blood mist to block the 6 shadows' attacks. She let out a shrill cry, and under the protection of the blood mist, she forced her way out of the sky domain and returned to the Lord of Evil's side. It wasn't that she didn't want to take the opportunity to kill Nian Bing. However, the closer the heavenly eye realm was to Nian Bing's body, the stronger the realm would become. In order to survive, she didn't dare to take any risks. Everything became silent again. Sina knelt weakly on the ground, gasping for breath. She had lost a lot of her dark energy, and it wasn't just her external energy. Even her most precious soul energy had been sucked away by that slash. She didn't understand what had happened, but as a dark creature, her heart was filled with fear. After Sina retreated, Nian Bing immediately withdrew her sky domain. Sina wasn't the only one who didn't understand what had just happened. Even Nian Bing didn't understand what had happened. When Sina released the blood mist, his heart sank. Through the sky domain, he could clearly sense that the blood mist wasn't completely dark anymore. His 7 shadow puppets hadn't been completed yet, so there was no way they could break through such a strong defense. Just as he was about to react, the shadow puppet severely injured Sina. Not only that, but the shadow puppet also automatically blocked Evil Moon's attack for him. Nian Bing had a feeling that if it weren't for Evil Moon, the shadow puppet's slash would have sucked all of Sina's energy dry. He didn't know where this feeling came from, but it felt so real. The 7 shadow puppets lined up neatly in front of Nian Bing. In this short period of time, they quickly absorbed the connate energy in the air to replenish themselves. Of course, this didn't include the shadow puppet. The shadow puppet's body appeared to be much more solid than before, although it was still in a transparent form of energy. However, there seemed to be a black mist swirling around its body. It was obviously much stronger than the other shadow puppets. Seeing all of this, Nian Bing remembered the name of the blade in the shadow puppet's hand, the demon-devouring blade. Could it be that it could devour the aura of all demons? 7 blades. Each one has its own characteristics. Each one is filled with an unusually powerful aura, each one has its own uniqueness. Until now, Nian Bing had not figured out how powerful the energy hidden in these blades is. However, the shadow puppet's sudden outburst made him vaguely feel something. Of course, this feeling was not clear. Evelmun's cold voice sounded. Safin, you should recognize this blade. I didn't expect. It's still in the human world and didn't follow its master. I really didn't expect it. Safin's voice trembled. It's the curse of eternal hell, the demon-devouring blade. How could it be? How could Emperor Kurobutsu's demon-devouring blade be in this boy's hands? Moreover, this blade seems to have changed. It has become more powerful than before. Before, it did not seem to have this kind of ability. Demon Lord, I really don't know why this happened. When Emperor Kurobutsu and I were sealed together, I lost contact with him. You know, the main target of the divine prohibition is Emperor Kurobutsu. He alone bore nearly 70% of the divine prohibition. How could he survive? But this blade? Evil Moon raised his hand, stopping Safin from continuing. Slowly, step by step, he approached Nianbing. While walking, he calmly said, Human, although your strength is beyond my expectations, but, you know, in the battle between you and Sina, I also saw a lot of things. At least, I can be sure that you are not from the godly continent. Even if you have opened your Tianyin acupoint, it's only opened your Tianyin acupoint. I have to admit, you are a genius. Your psychological quality is also very good. What a pity, your strength is still not enough to contend against us. If you didn't have those 7 blades in your hand, Safin could have easily killed you. Looking at you, you're just a human archmage. Although your magic is very strange, and you have a strange innate domain, your only result is death. I think you should have a certain relationship with the 7 Dragon Kings. If you were their friend, and they allowed you to guard here alone, then the 7 Dragon Kings will be in some trouble. I really didn't think that I would find such a good opportunity today. Human, I admire your magic. You have Emperor Kurobutsu's devouring blade. If you are willing to submit to me, then not only will I spare your life, I will also teach you powerful dark magic and make you the strongest human. Perhaps you're stalling for time, but you no longer have the chance. Upon hearing Evil Moon's words, Nian Bing's heart sank. He knew that it wasn't because he was careless. The main problem was his own strength. The guy in front of him, who was called the Evil Lord, must be the leader of these people in the dark. He must be the lich that Garamans mentioned. Based on his experience, Nian Bing knew that the Evil Lord had seen through his flaws in his battle with Sina. Nian Bing was still not strong enough. However, he still overestimated her. In fact, she still hadn't reached the level of a magus. If it wasn't for the devouring blade, she would have been torn to pieces by Sina. Submitting could be exchanged for life, but would she? No, absolutely not. The pride in her bones filled Nianbing's body and mind. Looking back, she took a deep look at the cave behind her and secretly prayed, Garamandes, I hope my sacrifice will give you enough time. You have to work hard. At this moment, Nianbing suddenly realized something. There was no more hatred in his heart. There was nothing else. His brain was completely filled with the obsession in his heart. He didn't think about anything for himself. Now, he only wanted to stop Evil Moon and the others. He wanted to stop these enemies from invading the 7 Dragon Kings. Obsession allowed Nian Bing's mind to merge perfectly with his own magic power. The sky became clearer than before. The 7 colored flames surrounded his body and burned slowly. The cheers of the magical elements could almost be heard in the air. Nian Bing calmly looked at the Evil Lord in front of him and calmly said, I never thought of myself as a good person, nor did I think of myself as a gentleman. However, I do understand one principle. Thirsty, don't drink the water of the stolen spring. Heat, don't dwell in the shade of the evil tree. Do you want to hurt my friends? Yes, but only if you step over my dead body. You're right. You're all much stronger than me. But strength doesn't mean everything. Sina had recovered a little at this time. When she stood up straight again, her beautiful face became even paler. Well, what a persistent human. If I suck your blood, I can at least recover 70%. Evil Moon, my lord, kill her. Don't hesitate anymore. No one was more familiar with Evil Moon than her. She knew that Evil Moon had taken pity on her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wasted so much time talking to Nian Bing at this tense moment. The Devil's Devouring Blade devoured more than half of Sina's ability. She hated the human in front of her. Evil Moon frowned slightly. The green light in his eyes became even more intense. Human, don't tell me you still don't understand? I'll give you one last chance. Nian Bing's face showed a trace of sarcasm. Don't call me human. My surname is Rome. My name is Nian Bing Rome. Remember my name. I think I'll leave a deeper impression on you. Evil Moon smiled faintly and said, if that's the case, then I can only destroy you. Nian Bing's body floated up into the air, and he didn't have any leverage. Green light surrounded his body, and Nian Bing was shocked to discover that everything around him had turned green. The magical elements in the air were gradually being sucked away, and he was no longer able to absorb magical elements to replenish himself. Subconsciously, she controlled the shadow puppet to block in front of her. At the same time, she released the Sky Eye Realm. A storm was coming. Nian Bing didn't know how long she could hold on. Nian Bing Rong, don't you realize? You only have the Devil's Devouring Blade. Even if Emperor Kurobutsu came back to life, he might not be able to defeat me. A ball of dark green flames appeared in front of Nian Bing like a bolt of lightning. There was no aura in the flames, nor was there any fire element. It seemed to be a pure flame, but it didn't have any pure aura. The sky lit up, and Nian Bing finally understood what kind of flame this was. This dark green flame was the burning of evil thoughts. He could even feel the aura of a soul within this flame. Of course, it wasn't the soul of the evil lord, but a dead spirit. A dead spirit that had been dead for an unknown period of time. At this moment, the green flame suddenly fluctuated slightly. It turned into a flame arrow and rushed into the Sky Eye Realm in the blink of an eye. The flame arrow was extremely fast. Although it was slowed down by the Sky Eye Realm, it arrived in front of the shadow puppet in the blink of an eye. The Devil's Devouring Blade in the shadow puppet's hand flashed. The green flame sword disappeared, and the energy of the shadow puppet seemed to have increased. Evil Moon praised, good, it deserves to be called the Devil's Devouring Blade. It seems that my guess is right. I don't know how you activated the energy of the Devil's Devouring Blade. It can absorb all the aura of darkness and evil. It really is a top dark divine weapon. However, it's not enough to have a divine weapon. It also depends on the strength of the user. As he spoke, a bell appeared in his hand. It was a black bell the size of a palm. When it appeared in Evil Moon's hand, it made a soft tinkling sound. The sound was very soft, but in Nian Bing's ears, it was like the roar of a giant bell. She subconsciously took a step back and almost fell to the ground. The 7 shadow puppets in front of her became a little dimmer at the same time. Only the light of the 7 divine blades was still strong. The sudden change shocked Ling Nian Bing. She didn't know what had happened. Evil Moon smiled and said, I don't want to waste too much magic power on you, so I'll use this soul-seizing bell, which is also a dark divine weapon, to send you there. There are 7 sounds in the soul-seizing bell, and the first one is the shaking bell. As he spoke, the bell in his hand shook slightly. Suddenly, a bell that was much stronger than before suddenly sounded. Nian Bing felt her mind go blank. The Sky Eye acupoint closed by itself, and the magic power in her body seemed to be trapped by something. The Sky Eye realm was out of her control and disappeared automatically. When she woke up again, she found that only the 7 shadow puppets were still in front of her. However, except for the shadow puppet, the light of the other shadow puppets had become so dim that it was almost invisible. There was a trace of bitterness on Nian Bing's face. The evil lord was much more terrible than she had imagined. That was just a bell. Evil Moon smiled faintly and said, It seems that I still overestimated you. You can't bear it after one vibration. Now, you should understand that the top divine weapon depends on who is using it. The second sound of my soul-seizing bell is the sound of extinction. If you can bear it, I'll spare your life for the time being. As he spoke, he raised the soul-seizing bell in his hand again. Nian Bing stood up from the ground and waved her left hand. At the same time, she withdrew her 7 magic knives and dispersed the energy of the 7 shadow puppets. The energy of all the shadow puppets was transferred back to her body at the same time, which made her spirit recover a little and reconnected with her magic power. However, the magic-devouring knife did not bring her more energy. It seemed that all the evil aura that she had absorbed before was absorbed by the knife itself. "Wait a minute," Nian Bing suddenly said. She spread out her hands to show that she had given up resisting. "You broke my innate realm with one sound. I admit that I'm not your match." Evil Moon looked at Nian Bing with great interest and said, "So, you're going to surrender to me?" The reason why he admired Nian Bing was because Nian Bing had an innate talent that even Safin and Sina couldn't compare to. As long as it was used properly, this innate talent could turn Nian Bing into another version of himself. Although Safin was powerful, he was only a nether witch. The biggest difference between a nether witch and a lich was that they didn't have a body. Without a body, they wouldn't be afraid of physical attacks, but without a body, they wouldn't have acupuncture points. Chapter 124. Evil Moon had opened 3 aperture acupoints, so he naturally knew that the void acupoint was absolutely useful for any cultivator. At the same time, he also knew that the Heaven's Eye acupoint was the spiritual acupoint of the 7 aperture acupoints. Nian Bing had opened the Heaven's Eye acupoint, so her future was limitless. If he could control her, it would be of great benefit for him to master the mysterious Forgotten Kingdom in the future. Therefore, he had not killed Nian Bing, hoping that she could rely on him. Nian Bing smiled and said, "It's not impossible for me to surrender to you. After all, I also want to become stronger. Perhaps you have felt that I don't practice only one kind of magic. Sometimes, even I don't know what level my magic has reached, what characteristics it has, and what kind of power it can produce. How much do you know about the 7 elements magic? If you want me to surrender to you, the first condition is that you have to help me. At present, although I feel that you are very powerful, you and I practice different magic. If I surrender to you, how can you help me improve my strength? In my opinion, although you practice as a lich, you are still a human. You can't be good at other abilities at the same time." Evil Moon smiled and said, "It's not impossible. You have to understand that as early as thousands of years ago, I was also a human magician. Originally, I didn't practice the current magic. Like you, it was just ordinary human magic. Later, I discovered the power of death magic and the ability to live forever, so I changed my practice to the current magic. I am a lich, but I didn't develop from a dark magician. Necromancy is my foundation, which has been the foundation for thousands of years. No matter what kind of magic it is, I have detailed information in my mind. As long as you don't surrender to me, under my guidance, you will greatly improve. With the Heaven's Eye acupoint, you can even learn my necromancy magic. A person's life is limited, but if you practice necromancy magic with me, you can become immortal. I think that anyone would want to live for a long time." Nian Bing was lost in thought. After hesitating for a while, she said, "Immortality is indeed very attractive to me. It seems that surrendering to you is a good choice. I have another condition. Bastard, the evil lord is willing to accept your surrender and teach you the method of immortality. This is already a gift to you. How dare you ask for another condition?" Sina said hatefully. Evil Moon raised his hand to stop Sina from continuing. He said to Nian Bing, "Okay, tell me about it. In this world, there are not many things that I can't do." A look of hatred appeared on Nian Bing's face. "I still have a huge grudge to avenge. She killed my parents. If you promise to help me kill her, I will submit to you. However, my enemy is not an ordinary person. She is the only divine descent master on this continent, the Ice Goddess Priestess. Can you do it?" Evil Moon said. Moon said, "In the eyes of others, the priest of the Ice Goddess is a powerful existence. However, in my eyes, she is just a human magician. Well, I promise you." Seeing the hatred in Nian Bing's eyes, Evil Moon trusted her a lot more. It was only at this moment that he started to trust Nian Bing a little more. After all, as a powerful individual in the darkness, he was very clear about the characteristics of humans. As long as a human had a negative aura, his spirit would not be unbreakable. The hatred on Nian Bing's face was not fake at all. It was hatred that came from the bottom of his heart. He could clearly feel the intense hatred in Nian Bing's soul. Nian Bing took a deep breath and said, "All right, since that's the case, I'll agree to submit to you. However, I believe that submitting to you won't be that simple. You'll definitely want something from me." Evil Moon said with a smile, "Of course, if you want to gain my trust, I have a curse that you need to complete. As long as you complete this curse, then you will be my person in the future. However, this is not urgent. In order to show your loyalty, now you will leave the cave and tell me what happened to the 7 Dragon Kings. As for the curse, we can talk about it after the matter here is over." Nian Bing said with some surprise, "Curse? Lord Evil Lord, I have heard of an incomplete curse incantation. It seems to be very magical. Can you explain it to me?" Evil Moon frowned slightly. He was already a little impatient, but he still nodded and said, "Well, you can say it. I am afraid that no one on this continent is more familiar with curses than me." Nian Bing said, "The incantation of this curse is like this." At this point, his eyes became a little blurred. With a low and magnetic voice, he slowly said in a certain tone, "With my life as the price, I curse all living things. With my soul as the price, I curse all elements. With my blood as the guide, and my soul as the melody, I am willing to sacrifice my life in exchange for the infinite power between heaven and earth. Destruction is my hope. I am willing to impose the curse on myself in exchange for the hope of destruction. The most mysterious curse in the world. I am willing to sacrifice myself for you, with the power of the curse as the source. Release my life. Forbidden, the sigh of the curse of life." From the moment Nian Bing began to recite the first incantation, Evil Moon had been listening carefully. He felt that this incantation was very familiar, but also strange because he often used curses, but he had never used such an incantation. He did not want to show weakness in front of Nian Bing, so he carefully recalled the complicated incantation in his mind, hoping to find the function of this incantation. However, when he heard the words, "I am willing to sacrifice myself for you," Evil Moon was shocked. He looked at Nian Bing in horror and shouted, "Quick, stop. This is not an incomplete incantation." However, it was still a step too late. The incantation had been completed. Nian Bing smiled, and the previous trace of humility completely disappeared. She looked at Evil Moon calmly and said, "Of course I know this is not an incomplete incantation, but how can I complete this incantation if I don't say it? Lord Evil Lord, I don't know if the strength that I have gained from cursing my own life in exchange for everyone can compete with you." Circles of white halo were constantly emitted from Nian Bing's body. It was not a holy breath, nor did it represent light. At this moment, her body seemed to have become magic elements. In the white light, Nian Bing's muscles expanded slightly, and a magic sword appeared again. However, this time, it emitted a strong light that seemed to be able to penetrate everything. From the moment he started to talk to Evil Moon to delay time, he had decided to use this curse of life. Nian Bing was surprised to find that at this moment, he seemed to have forgotten the fear of death. When he thought that the life he released might be exchanged for the birth of a new Dragon King, his heart became calmer. He had deeply experienced the pain of losing his parents. If Evil Moon had these people enter the cave, he was afraid that not only would the little Dragon King lose his parents, even he could not protect himself. Garamandes' help to him, the Earth Dragon King, Fatso's help to him, he remembered every bit of it clearly. They did not ask for anything in return for their help, but they were all his friends. Now, even if he did not use the curse of life, the evil lord would not let him go, and the 7 Dragon Kings would be destroyed. Nian Bing had always valued benefits. Since he would not have a good ending no matter what, why not fight? And why not give it a try? At least if he won, his friends would be able to survive. He did not think that he was great. He just felt that this was what he should do as a man, an indomitable man. His wisdom was used at this moment. First, he resolved part of the evil lord's doubts about him, used his own true hatred to reduce his suspicions, and finally used the curse of life in the way of questioning. Everything happened so naturally. Power. Nian Bing felt an incomparably strong power. The 7 magic light balls in his body suddenly doubled in size. With the release of the breath of life, his power became stronger and stronger with his body as the center. Magical elements could be clearly seen. Specks of light of 7 different colors actually broke through the dark green barrier and continued to gather around Nian Bing's body. The energy he had obtained from releasing his life essence was much more powerful than he had expected. A cold light flashed in Nian Bing's eyes. The all-elemental shadow puppet appeared once again. However, he didn't use any incantations this time. With a single thought, 7 figures that seemed to be real appeared. At the same time, the sky-eye domain spread out in an instant. In the blink of an eye, it had exceeded his original limit of 5 feet. The whole valley seemed to be filled with the sky-eye domain, and even Evil Moon's figure was affected. The huge, colorful light broke through the green barrier and brought light back to the valley. Another beginning, a beginning at the cost of vitality, appeared. Evil Moon looked coldly at Nian Bing. "Are you crazy? Don't you understand that using the curse of life will exhaust your vitality, and even your soul will be destroyed?" Nian Bing said lightly, "You and I have different ideas. I will never surrender to anyone. In this cave, they're my friends. In order to protect them, I would rather fight to the death." Evil Moon smiled. "Well, I didn't expect there to be a different kind of human like you. But you're wrong about one thing. Even if you use the curse of life, you can't defeat me. I am a lich, the strongest in the dark realm. I will show you what the really powerful dark power is." As he spoke, he tore off the veil on his face, revealing his handsome and evil appearance. His dark green eyes gradually turned into blood red. He shook the soul-snatching bell in his hand and shouted, "Break!" In an instant, under the effect of a strange bell sound, the sky-eye domain that restricted him was forced to retreat a few feet. A layer of red light shrouded his subordinates, including Safin and Sina. They were all sent hundreds of feet away by this huge energy. Evil Moon was enraged by Nian Bing's actions. He wanted to use his own power to destroy this human who dared to offend him. He wanted to completely destroy her. The evil energy made a blood-red sun appear behind him. That was the evil blood sun that represented the lich's strength. Nian Bing was still standing on the same spot. He wasn't affected by the soul-stealing bell at all. "Demon Lord, if I'm not wrong, your darkness divine weapon mainly affects the opponent's spiritual power and willpower. I'm willing to sacrifice my life to protect my friends. At least at this moment, my willpower is perfect. Therefore, your soul-stealing bell is no longer able to affect me. I will also show you my true power. Actually, it is not accurate to say that I am an all-elemental magician. My all-elemental magic is derived from the mimicry magic of the dragons. The real me is a magician of the same origin as ice and fire." The 2 shadow puppets of ice and fire disappeared at the same time. The sigh of the ice goddess, the morning dew dagger, and the roar of the fire god were held in Nian Bing's hands. After using the curse of life that Long Ji taught him, he finally understood what the limit of ice and fire was, and what the true origin of ice and fire was. Although it may be too late, Nian Bing, who abandoned all distracting thoughts, decided to use the most beautiful magic to draw a perfect end to his life. In his mind, the incantation that he had never used before flashed clearly. Nian Bing smiled. Since he was going to face the consequences of the curse of life, why not be more calm? "Ice and snow that exist in the coldest part of the world, I want to borrow your pure energy and transform it into a cold valley, and transform it into the divine power of the ice goddess. Condense it into proud ice, condense it into frigid ice, condense it into pure ice, condense it into solid ice, and with the guidance of the ice goddess divine power, condense it into a perfect body, and transform it into endless divine power. Appear in the strongest form of a living creature." The morning dew dagger flew out of his hand, and the ice goddess stone on the dagger's hilt turned into an eye, a huge blue eye. The pure ice element was closely connected, and in the cold air, the ice body gradually took shape. It was a huge dragon a dragon that was 3 times larger than the real Dragon King. Its appearance brought endless cold to the valley, and all the plants withered in the cold. The temperature dropped sharply, and the ice goddess dragon roared towards the sky, letting out a deafening dragon roar. This was a dragon based on ice. Under the effect of the ice goddess stone as its source, this level 11 spell was successfully completed. The forbidden spell, Ice Goddess Dragon, was a powerful forbidden spell in ice magic, second only to God's Descent. At least when the spell was maintained, the strength of this huge Ice Goddess Dragon was not below that of the Ice Dragon King Sasaris. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Nian Bing's body swayed slightly. Although the curse of life had summoned the strongest magic, it still put a huge burden on her body. At this moment, Nian Bing remembered the words of the Fire Dragon King Garamandes. If she wanted to become the most powerful magician, she must have a body that could withstand the impact of a huge amount of magic. She hoped that her body could hold on. Evil Moon's face changed slightly, and he shouted to his subordinates in a deep voice, "You all leave this valley immediately. I will come back after I deal with him." Ice Goddess Dragon. Humph. Evil Moon put away the soul-stealing bell, and a crystal-clear blood-red magic staff appeared in his hand. This magic staff was more like a thick and long bone, which was a little longer than Evil Moon's body. At the top of the bone, there was an opaque black gem, which exuded layers of bloody breath. The bloody sun behind him lit up. Evil Moon recited his spell in a strange voice. When he recited the first note, everything behind him was covered by a blood-red light, as if the sky had turned red. Evil Moon's spell was in a special language, which Nian Bing couldn't understand, and he didn't care what magic Evil Moon used. After completing the forbidden spell, Ice Goddess Dragon, he didn't activate it. Instead, he took a deep breath, gathered all his magic power, and completely dissolved the 5 shadow puppets. He put away the other 5 magic knives, raised the roar of the god of fire in his hand, and slowly recited, "Heavenly fire that exists in the scorching heat of heaven and earth, I want to borrow your pure energy and turn it into endless lava, condensing the divine power of the god of fire, condensing it into the burning fire, condensing it into the fire of passion, condensing it into the fire of nirvana of the phoenix, condensing it into the fire of hell. With the divine power of the god of fire as the guide, condensing it into a perfect body and transforming it into endless divine power. Show yourself in the strongest form of a living creature." Forbidden spell, Dragon of the God of Fire. The red light gradually turned purple. Yes, this was the hottest heavenly fire. Prince Rong once used heavenly fire to condense into the shape of a lion. That was a forbidden spell close to the 11th level. Dragons were the most powerful creatures in the world, so the Dragon of the God of Fire was the real forbidden spell. It was the same as the dragon of the Ice Goddess Dragon, only a little less than the god's arrival spell. The huge purple fire god's dragon appeared. It was the complete opposite of the pure Ice Goddess's dragon. The whole valley was divided into 3 parts. Evil Moon's huge blood-red evil power, the extremely cold white ice god's power, and the extremely hot purple fire god's power. The 3 colors looked so harmonious. But in these extreme energies, the plants in the whole valley had been completely turned into flying ash. Spitting out another mouthful of blood, Nian Bing's face showed a trace of gray. His original long golden hair was a little more gray, and the full release of vitality had made him close to the edge of exhaustion. But, after all, he had completed these 2 powerful forbidden spells that could steal the good fortune of heaven and earth. There was a little more vicissitudes in his voice. "Go, Dragon of the Ice Goddess, Dragon of the God of Fire, destroy all evil." 2 long and loud dragon roars shook the whole cold mountain range. The huge dragon flapped its wings and flew high, and at the same time, it spat out white and purple dragon breaths toward Evil Moon. Evil Moon's incantation had been completed at this moment, and the blood-red sky behind him was rendered. Floating in the air, he was like a demon god. The blood-red light, condensed by countless evil powers, gathered into a huge red light ball, which appeared in front of him. Evil Moon shouted in his cold voice, "Devil, God, Eater." The red light ball flew out slowly, but with every inch it moved, its range increased a lot. The two completely different breaths of ice and fire gathered in the air and condensed into one. Circling and entangling, it hit the red light ball like a bloody sun. Nian Bing shouted at the top of his lungs, "Ice and fire come from the same source, two dragons in one. The sigh of the ice goddess, the roar of the god of fire, burst out your strongest power." At this moment, the light on the morning dew dagger and the Xingyang saber weakened to the minimum at the same time, and the two dragons' bodies shrank completely. Following their entangling breaths, the huge dragon bodies entangled in the air and rushed toward the blood-red sky. While flying in midair, the ice goddess dragon and the fire god dragon suddenly underwent mutation. Their intertwined bodies twisted and unexpectedly fused together. Shortly after, their dragon bodies disappeared in midair. Rings of surging purple and white energies fused and unexpectedly formed a huge hexagram with a diameter of more than 30 meters. The radiance around the hexagram was completely distorted. Streaks of lightning-like fluctuations flickered around the hexagram. A smile appeared on Yin Bing's weathered face. He knew that he had succeeded. This was not as simple as two 11th-level forbidden spells. They were formed by the same source of ice and fire. Even Yin Bing himself could not estimate to what extent they had reached. The huge six-pointed star floated toward the seemingly distant bloody sky. The blood-red light ball emitted by Evil Moon was directly swallowed by the six-pointed star, and the destructive energy exploded in the air. The light suddenly condensed, and the strange light instantly condensed into a single point. The next moment, a huge explosion occurred. The power of a forbidden spell was absolutely terrifying, but was much weaker than the god's arrival spell. There is no doubt that Evil Moon was one of the most powerful liches in history. His strength had even surpassed the realm of God's arrival spell. Similarly, at the cost of his life, Nian Bing released two forbidden spells in the form of the same source of ice and fire. He was gambling with his life to obtain the most powerful power. Yes, he had succeeded. Although the purple-white six-pointed star that seemed to come from hell did not belong to any kind of God's arrival spell, the power it displayed at the last moment had reached the level of God's arrival spell. The red, purple, and white light completely mixed together. They were the eruption of God's arrival spell. Evil Moon floated nearly 100 feet in the air. When the energy erupted, the blood-red light around his body instantly dimmed. A trace of panic appeared on his evil face. The next moment, he wildly spat out a mouthful of blood, which condensed into a strange symbol in front of him. His entire body disappeared in an instant. Of course, leaving his original position did not mean that he had escaped the attack of God's arrival spell. The huge amount of energy had firmly locked onto his breath. The purple-black airflow swept out 100 feet in the air, and the energy spread in an instant. Wherever it passed, there was no strong explosion, nor was there a huge sound of mountains collapsing. However, no matter what came into contact with this purple-black airflow, it instantly turned into powder and disappeared. The frenzy of energy lasted for a full meal, and then something terrible happened. The entire cold mountain range, which covered an extremely large area, did not have any magical elements for a short period of time. With the energy eruption as the center, nearly one-third of the mountains in the cold mountain range were flattened from 100 feet in height. It was as if those mountains were originally like that. What followed was an energy storm that lasted for nearly a month. In the energy storm, not to mention feeling the magical elements and cultivating, survival had become an extremely difficult thing. And all this was caused by that peerless collision. The reason why a forbidden spell was called a forbidden spell was because the power of its destruction was too strong. It was because the destructive power it produced was too strong. It was a power that should not belong to the human world. Fortunately, this was the cold mountain range. Otherwise, The burst of power could easily flatten a large city. The goddess of ice priestess felt the collision of the gods' arrival spell. Prince Rome, who had just returned to the court, felt it too. They were all surprised and guessed the source of this energy. But no one could figure out who the two sides of the battle were. At the same time, the 7 dragon kings in the depths of the cave also felt it. They were the closest. When the energy erupted, if the 7 dragon kings did not have abnormally strong strength, they would have been killed. Because of the energy eruption, they would have already gone mad. They could not see everything outside, but they could clearly feel what was happening outside. Everything that Nian Bing had done was clearly presented in their minds. The eyes of the 7 dragon kings were moist. But at this moment, they could no longer help Nian Bing. Even if they wanted to give up the dragon egg in front of them, it had become impossible. The strange energy on the dragon egg was actually pulling at their own energy. It was like a huge hole, constantly absorbing the energy of the 7 dragon kings to replenish itself. Once any one of the dragon kings suddenly pulled, then he would immediately be attacked by the combined energy of the other 6 dragon kings. So they could not move. Compared to the current situation, it was equivalent to suicide. The powerful 7 dragon kings never thought that one day they would have to live under the protection of a human's life. Garamandes closed his eyes. Fatso closed his eyes. Among the 7 dragon kings, even the coldest space dragon king Kadiris could not help but shed tears. They could imagine what would happen to Nian Bing, who had burned her life force to such an extent. They did not know whether the enemy had retreated, but they were not willing to think about that at this time. Nian Bing. This name had been deeply imprinted in the hearts of the 7 dragon kings. On the surface, everything was calm. Was Nian Bing dead? No, she was not. The coldness of the ground and the smell of the earth were so real. Nian Bing suddenly realized that the feeling of lying on the ground was very real. The magic just now had almost exhausted his life force. The reason why he was still alive was not because of how strong his life force was, but because of the heavenly flower tablet in his chest that Urian had given him. The gentle airflow protected his internal organs, preserving the last spark of his life. Although Nian Bing could no longer feel the heavenly eye acupoint and could not feel a trace of magic in his body, he was indeed still alive. Nian Bing thought of Urian, thought of Feng Nu. He secretly prayed that the mother and daughter could meet again and that their family could be reunited. Nian Bing was now rejoicing. During the days when he lived with Feng Nu, he did not know how many times he could not control his desire to break through the last step with Feng Nu. However, he had always resisted. Now, he was rejoicing for his actions. If something were to happen between him and the Phoenix girl, then his death would definitely be a huge blow to her, and it might even affect her happiness for the rest of her life. Who would have thought that his tolerance towards the Phoenix girl's birth would have such a tragic effect? Nian Bing forgot all his selfish thoughts. He knew that even if he didn't die now, he would lose most of his life force. He wouldn't be able to live for long. He didn't dare to imagine what he would look like now. Perhaps he had already become an old man. The gloomy aura appeared again and pulled Nian Bing back from his thoughts. He forced his eyelids open and saw Evil Moon, who was in perfect condition. Vampire Queen Sina and underworld sorcerer Safin were beside him. Nian Bing was not surprised. He only silently said in his heart, "I am sorry, Garamandes Fatso. I have done my best. Did you know that I didn't ask for the 4 sealing bottles of Mordas to tempt the Demon Lord's group, but to hide them? When I can't resist these people, even if they kill you, they won't be able to find these 4 bottles. Just let these 4 bottles sleep in my space ring." Evil Moon's face was almost dripping blood. He stared deeply at Nian Bing, whose hair had turned white and whose face was full of vicissitudes of life. In fact, it was not as easy as it seemed. After all, Evil Moon was a powerful existence who surpassed divine descent masters. When he felt that something was wrong, he immediately broke away from the energy storm, although that was not enough for him to escape. As a powerhouse of the darkness, he transferred the impact that he should have suffered to his subordinates. Originally, there were hundreds of dark powerhouses, but now, only he, Safin, and Sina were left. Although Evil Moon still had more than 70% of his strength, the strength that he had accumulated over hundreds of years had been mostly destroyed by Nian Bing in a single day. His hatred came from the depths of his bones. An ear-piercing scream came from Sina's mouth. Although her strength was extremely close to that of a divine descent master, the scene just now was simply too terrifying. Sina knew that if Evil Moon was not completely neutralized in the end, the next unlucky one would be Safin, and the last one would be herself. Seeing her subordinates around her being reduced to ashes one after another by Evil Moon's energy conversion ability, as the vampire queen, her heart was filled with fear. With a flash, Sina's long nails clawed at Nian Bing on the ground. She wanted to destroy this human who had almost turned mute. A vampire's life was almost endless. Death was definitely the most terrifying thing for her. Stop! Evil Moon grabbed Sina and said coldly, "This man can't die yet." Why? Sina looked at Evil Moon in confusion. Chapter 125. Wicked Moon said, "He is still useful now. Although the 7 Dragon Kings may be in trouble, we have to let him go." This human protected the 7 Dragon Kings at the cost of his life. With the personality of the 7 Dragon Kings, they will definitely protect this human. He is now a bargaining chip in my hand. As he spoke, Wicked Moon left Sina aside and slowly walked to Nian Bing and squatted down. Looking at Nian Bing's pale skin and his long white hair, Wicked Moon smiled. "Human, do you know? Since I reached the Lich Realm, I never thought that I would be stopped by humans. I haven't been in contact with the outside world for a long time. Have humans changed? Have they all learned to sacrifice? You were supposed to be dead, but you seem to have something on you that could save your life. That's why you're still alive. Don't worry, I won't let you die before I achieve the purpose of this trip. For you, the loss of magic, the loss of a healthy body, and the loss of life is more painful than death." The muscles on Nian Bing's face twitched, and he said weakly, "Do you think so? You should be dead, but I am alive because I want to see how you die. I think what the 7 Dragon Kings wanted to do has been done. I want to see how they kill you before willing to die." Wicked Moon's eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Are you forcing me to kill you? Don't dream, I won't kill you, Sina. Take him and let's go into the cave. Remember, don't do anything to him unless there is an order. He is now so weak that he may die at any time." After saying this, he walked into the cave first. Nian Bing's whole body shook, and he was lifted up by Sina. Sina wanted to crush the human in her hand like an ant. However, she didn't dare to disobey Wicked Moon's order. Nian Bing closed his eyes and breathed gently. He was surprised to find that his bodily functions were gradually recovering. Although the recovery was very, very slow, traces of cool aura continuously came from all parts of his body, nourishing his body and mind. He didn't know what was going on. However, he could vaguely guess that it had something to do with the innate chi he had absorbed. He didn't move. He didn't even dare to reveal any changes in his body. He relied on his own body to continuously accumulate power. He didn't expect to survive. As Evil Moon had said, he who had lost his power felt more painful than death. Now, he just wanted to condense more energy. At the last moment, he wanted to see if he could help the 7 Dragon Kings. The best-case scenario was, of course, to destroy the 4 Miorda's sealing bottles. The cave was very deep. Evil Moon walked very carefully. After all, in this area, there was no support of various kinds of deer aura for the time being. Even if he practiced the most evil ability, it was inseparable from the magic elements. In order to get the Miorda's sealing bottles, he had to use his remaining ability carefully. Finally, he reached the end of the deep cave. Evil Moon, Safin, Sina, and Nian Bing all saw everything in front of them. The 7 Dragon Kings were shining with 7-colored light, and they were constantly injecting their energy into the huge earth dragon egg. Several cracks had appeared on the top of the dragon egg, and the faint gray light was slowly fading. Obviously, the hatching was not far away. Seeing everything in front of him, Evil Moon was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed. Of course, he could guess the reason for everything in front of him. Evil laughter filled the deepest part of the cave. Here, 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 here. I didn't expect to see such a scene when I came here so carefully. The union of the Light Dragon King and the Dark Dragon King actually gave birth to a monster. Come on, I'm not too late. I'm just in time for the most exciting scene. No wonder you let Human Guard outside. It turns out that such a wonderful thing is happening inside. Garamandes roared, "Bastard, we won't let you go." Evil Moon said indifferently, "If you had the strength to not let me go, I'm afraid you would have already done it." "Oh no, it's not that you don't have the strength, but that strength is now used to save the dragon egg." Fire Dragon King, don't be so grumpy. Control your energy carefully. Otherwise, not only will the dragon egg be finished, but even your good brothers will also suffer. I don't want to waste my time talking nonsense. You should know that I'm not interested in dragon slaying. Hand over the Miorda's sealing bottles, and I can let you go. Kadiri's laughed and said, "Are you kidding me? You belong to the evil forces. Today I heard the funniest joke in the world. As a lich, do you have a letter to speak of?" Evil Moon said calmly, "So what if I don't have a letter? Now, do you still have a right to choose? I'll count to 3. If you don't hand over the Miorda's sealing bottles, don't blame me for being rude. In your current situation, you can't fight against me at all." Sina threw Nian Bing aside. Although Nian Bing was no longer useful, she didn't dare to kill Nian Bing without Evil Moon's permission. The power that the underworld, which had been accumulating for a long time, gradually spread out. The cave suddenly became cold and gloomy. 1. Evil Moon's voice sounded like a curse from hell. The 7 Dragon Kings couldn't help but feel nervous. They knew very well that although the dragon egg was about to hatch, it would take a while for it to succeed. The 7 Dragon Kings looked at each other, and their eyes gradually calmed down. In the face of the threat of death, as a proud people, they were not afraid at all. 2. The hellish voice sounded again. The entire tier cave became even quieter. The Vampire Queen's blood-red superarm was activated. The color of underworld, which Safin's fog, became darker. They were ready to fight at any time. Just then, a sound broke the silence. "Crispy high, crispy high." Everyone, including Evil Moon and the other 2, was stunned. This was because the sound came from the huge dragon egg. The cracks on the surface of the dragon egg suddenly became more numerous. Not to mention Evil Moon and the others, even Garamandes and the others who were Dragon King heard this strange sound for the first time. "Crispy high, crispy high." The egg cried again. Evil Moon's eyes flashed. The strong murderous intent made the surrounding air even colder. He knew that now was not the time to wait. Once the baby Dragon King was emulsified, the 7 Dragon Kings would immediately regain their fighting ability. Even if they were much weaker because of the emulsified dragon egg, the 3 of them wouldn't be able to resist. The 3 realms were about to appear. Nian Bing, who was lying on the ground, turned over and jumped to the side of Fire Dragon King Garamandes. His body was a little shaky. However, there was one more thing in his hand, Miorda's bottle of sealing. "Don't make a sound, or I will destroy this bottle." Nian Bing was still weak, but her voice was no longer as intermittent as before. Evil Moon saw Gorda's bottle of sealing, and the light in his eyes suddenly became scorching. "Good, I can spare them. Give me the bottle and the other 3 bottles." Nian Bingling smiled. "I never thought you would let them go. Since that is the case, let us destroy the stone together." As she spoke, she condensed an icicle and fiercely pierced it toward the bottle. Although she had just gained the perception of ice and fire, Nian Bing firmly believed that the strength was enough to destroy the porcelain bottle in her hand. Evil Moon didn't move, but looked at Nian Bing disdainfully. With a soft cry, the icicle turned into green powder. Nian Bing's body shook, and a layer of black aura was emitted from Miorda's bottle of sealing. Under the effect of the recoil, Miorda's bottle of sealing flew out of his hand. Xingyu casually caught Miorda's bottle of sealing in her hand. You still don't know about this matter. Even the 7 Dragon Kings don't know that these 10 bottles, let alone your little icicle, even a forbidden spell can't destroy them. This bottle of sealing not only has the curse of the Lost Kingdom, but also the divine power added by those self-righteous guys in the continent of gods. How can it be so easy to destroy? Listening to Evil Moon's understatement, Nian Bing's heart suddenly sank to the bottom. Her original hope was completely gone. Not only did Evil Moon take away one of Mi Orda's bottle of sealing, but more importantly, he exposed the fact that Gorda's bottle of sealing was on him. One wrong step and all wrong steps. At this moment, Evil Moon no longer paid attention to the 7 Dragon Kings. His almost frozen eyes were fixed on Nian Bing, and his green eyes turned into a strange blue. His voice seemed to be feeding, "Give it to me, and give me the remaining 3 bottles." If Nian Bing was in her best state at this time, and could use her Tian Yin acupoint, although there was a big gap between her strength and Evil Moon's, she would not be confused by his light. However, Nian Bing's body had deteriorated to a very low level. With her weak vitality and negligible magic power, how could she compete with a powerful existence like the Lich? The 7 Dragon Kings shouted at the same time, wanting to wake Nian Bing up. However, he was immersed in Xing Yu's strange blue eyes and could no longer hear the sound of the outside world. The remaining 3 bottles of Mi Orda's bottle of sealing were taken out one by one and handed to Evil Moon personally. Evil Moon laughed. This time, he was completely overjoyed. After brewing for 1,000 years, he finally got all 7 bottles of Mi Orda's bottle of sealing. How could he not laugh? With these 7 bottles, it was equivalent to having the key to ruling the whole continent. His 1,000-year wish had finally come true. His face was already a little distorted, and the evil aura fluctuated rapidly and unstably. With a fierce wave of his hand, Nian Bing was thrown to the side, and the control of the evil light disappeared at the same time. He did not kill Nian Bing. As he said, he let Nian Bing live. Anyway, Nian Bing was already a cripple. For him, living was more painful than death, especially after handing over 3 bottles of Mi Orda's bottle of sealing. The pain became even more intense. The 7 Dragon Kings' eyes showed sadness at the same time. No one thought that things would develop to this point. However, could they blame Nian Bing? No. How could they blame a person who almost sacrificed her life for them? What's more, Nian Bing's actions were completely involuntary. Nian Bing was sober. He knew what had happened, but he couldn't stop it no matter what. He had to watch helplessly as he handed the bottle, which was related to the safety of the continent, to Evil Moon. The pain was unparalleled. Even though he didn't do it willingly, he had failed to live up to the hopes of the 7 Dragon Kings. Looking at Evil Moon, her eyes were full of regret and fear. One wrong move, and the whole game was lost. Because of excessive force, her nails had pierced her palms, and her teeth had bitten her lips. She was full of hatred. The anger in her heart was almost burning to the extreme. The energy in her body seemed to have recovered a little because of the burning anger, but now it was too late. Evil Moon's laughter lasted for the time of meal before he stopped. She looked down at the 4 bottles of Mi Orda's bottle of sealing in her hand, her eyes full of obsession. "Crispy high, crispy high." The egg cried again, awakening Xing Yu from his extreme ecstasy. His gaze became cold again. Looking at the 7 Dragon Kings who were still working hard, he said faintly, "It's time to end everything. Let's start with this egg that can only cry." Red Xing Yu condensed in his hand. Suddenly, he raised his hand and sent out a ray of death to the young creature that was about to hatch. At this moment, who could stop him? The 7 Dragon Kings wanted to move, but their energy was completely attracted by the egg. They could only watch helplessly as Evil Moon's red light slowly cut through the sky and attacked in the direction of the dragon egg. Just as the 7 Dragon Kings closed their eyes and waited for the last moment to come, a scream made them open the dragon array again. The 7 Dragon Kings all saw a scene that made their blood boil. A tall figure fiercely jumped up, and that red Xing Guang shot straight at his chest. Above, the person who suddenly jumped up was Nian Bing. The red Evil Moon's red light was much stronger than Nian Bing imagined. The Evil Moon's light left a bowl-sized hole in his chest. His tall body, driven by Xing Yu, suddenly rushed toward the dragon egg that was still crying out loud. After the red Evil Moon's light penetrated his body, it had already landed on the egg first. A clear, breaking sound, as if the 7 Dragon Kings' heart was broken. The dragon egg was broken. How could the eggshell resist the evil moon's light? In the next moment, Nian Bing's body had already crashed heavily on the broken dragon egg. His vision turned black. He finally completely lost consciousness and his last trace of life. He was slipping away quietly. However, no one noticed that under Nian Bing's body, the dragon whelp that was about to hatch in the egg turned into a cloud of gray gas. The cloud of gas just happened to enter Nian Bing's body through his back. The 7 dragon kings shook violently at the same time. They opened their mouths and spat out a mist of blood. Evil Moon's heart was alarmed. He was surprised to find that although the dragon egg was destroyed, the 7 dragon kings were not seriously injured as he had imagined. The first to rush up was the fire dragon king, Garamandes, full of grief and anger. A layer of purple-red energy condensed on the surface of his fist. The fire dragon was angry. He had lived for tens of thousands of years, but he had never been as angry as he was now. Then the other 6 figures, including the weak light dragon king, Demanteti, all flew up. The 7 magical elements instantly expanded to every corner of the cave. Would Evil Moon dare to block a blow from Garamandes? If there was only the Fire Dragon King, he would definitely block Garamandes' attack without hesitation. Although his strength had been weakened by Nian Bing, Garamandes was also not in his best condition. In this case, he would not be afraid of Garamandes at all. However, he had to face more than just the Fire Dragon King. Once he blocked Garamandes' punch, he would lose his last chance to escape. The 7 Dragon Kings themselves were extremely terrifying existences. The 7 Dragon Kings and their fury were even more terrifying. If their power was fully displayed, even if it could destroy country, it was not a difficult thing to do. Before coming here, Evil Moon had already made thorough preparations. When he realized that something was wrong, he had already torn open a precious magic scroll on his body. A 10th grade long-distance teleportation magic array instantly came into effect. Under the urging of Evil Moon's own evil power, the whole magic array erupted at the fastest speed. Silver light instantly enveloped Underworld, which Safin and Vampire Queen Cena beside him. Garamandes' punch landed on the ground, but it was just an illusion. Boom! The Fire Dragon King's furious punch was like a fire dragon leaving its lair. The powerful fire energy let out a violent rumbling sound. The originally spacious cave was expanded by more than 2 times under this punch. However, the hatred in his heart was not eased in the slightest. Bastard! Damn spatial magic again. Garamandes, swear in the name of the Fire Dragon King, if I don't kill you bastards. I swear that I will not be a dragon if I tear you into pieces. A firm and powerful hand tightly grasped Garamandes' shoulder. Enough, calm down. See if your friends can be saved. Bingyan's voice was full of sadness. It was the Dark Dragon King, Kateriaxis. Garamandes turned around and looked at the calm Dark Dragon King. He lowered his head. I'm sorry, I couldn't save your children. Kateriaxis forced a smile on his face. It's too late. You have all done your best. Perhaps this is fate. The union between Demanteti and I was against the heavens. Perhaps the heavens did not want us to have children. As he said that, he walked to the Light Dragon King, who had returned to his human form and was staring blankly at Nian Bing and the broken eggshell, and gently pulled her into his arms. The 7 Dragon Kings all fell into silence. Their mood was unusually irritable and gloomy. This time, the 7 Dragon Kings, who were known as the most powerful on the continent, were defeated, and they were defeated so miserably. Not only were Kateriaxis and Demanteti's children not saved, even the 10 Godita's seal bottles that the Dragon God had given them Megard were all lost. They naturally understood what this meant. Kateriaxis said softly to Demanteti, "Thanks to that human. If it wasn't for him, I'm afraid we wouldn't even hear the children's cries. He helped us delay for so long with his own life. If possible, I'm willing to exchange my life for his." Garamandes said faintly, "No need." Nian Bing was using life curse magic. It was already a miracle that he was able to hold on until he was about to cry. In order to fight against the evil lord, he had to release an energy that was at the level of God's descent. Even though I didn't know how he managed to do it, it was impossible for him to survive after casting such a powerful magic spell at the cost of a life curse. What's more, at the last moment, he used his own body to block that evil light. I'm afraid there's no place left in his body. Speaking until here, 2 lines of tears slowly flowed down Garamandi's face. He walked with heavy steps, step by step, to Nian Bing. Looking at Nian Bing's ruined body, looking at his snow-white hair, Garamandi's voice choked up. Nian Bing, I, Garamandis, have always had my eyes on the top of my head. Since we first met, I have been using you to cook for me. In order to be able to taste the food you made, I even threatened you. Do you know? Even those fire dragon humans who are completely loyal to me don't have as much contact with me as you. Unknowingly, I have already treated you as my friend, my brother. Because of the matter of Gorda's bottle of sealing, I left your side and went to Fatso, hoping that his earth ability could give you more support. After all, with the help of his ability, your body would become stronger. However, you died just like that. You died for us. I don't remember how many humans died to slay dragons, but to save dragons, other than the ancestors of those white people, I'm afraid you're the only one who died to save dragons. Brother, my good brother, take care of your heroic spirit. Let me, Galamans, bow to you. Galamans pulled up the front of his clothes, and there was a thump sound. With a loud sound, he knelt in front of Nian Bing. As a proud dragon, especially a dragon king, he was actually willing to kneel in front of a human. In the history of dragons, this was the first time this had happened. However, Garamandi's action did not receive any opposition from the Dragon King beside him. They all silently approached Nian Bing in front of the remains of the dragon egg. The Dark Dragon King, Kajios, knelt down while supporting his wife, whose face was already covered in tears. Garamandis is right. Nian Bing, you are his brother. You are also a good brother of the 7 Dragon Kings. When you said that, you were. Now that you are gone, you are still. Although our child was not born into this world, you have already done your best. You don't have to feel unsatisfied because of Gorda's bottle of sealing. That wasn't your fault. You used your own life to help us. This favor, we dragons will firmly remember. On behalf of us husband and wife, I would like to say this to you. Brother, rest in peace. Saying that, he and the Light Dragon King, Demanteti's kneeling figure, slowly bowed. Nianbing gave the dragons the most important bow. It's me, it's all my fault. With a loud thud, the Earth Dragon King kneeled beside Garamandis. Nianbing, good brother, I shouldn't have brought you here. If it wasn't for me, perhaps you would still be sharing the sweetness of love with your wife. But now you're dead. How can I explain this to your wife? Nianbing. At this point, he was already choking with sobs. Among the Dragon King, other than the Fire Dragon King, Garamandis, he had the deepest feelings for Shi Bing. At this moment, in his eyes, he seemed to be able to see Nian Bing's focused expression when she was cooking. He seemed to be able to see Nian Bing's perseverance in order to defeat him. However, at this moment, Nian Bing's body had already started to turn cold. His life force was gradually dissipating with the air. The Wind Dragon King, Karadiris, the Space Dragon King, Kadiris, and the Ice Dragon King, Sasaris, surrounded Nian Bing and knelt down one after another. They all used the dragon's most important bow to show their respect to Nian Bing. They didn't have the slightest bit of resentment towards Nian Bing, who lost Miorda's bottle of sealing, because they were very clear that Nian Bing had already done his best. A human who hadn't even reached the level of a magic master, facing the combined attack of the most powerful lich, underworld witch, and vampire queen in the evil realm, actually lasted for a full 2 hours. That wasn't just a reflection of strength. More importantly, it was his spirit and his promise to his friends. Touched, the 7 Dragon Kings watched sadly. They all wanted to use their gazes to send the souls of Nian Bing and the dragon egg far away. The hearts of the 7 of them had already been connected at this time. When a matter here was over, even if they had to travel all over the continent, they would still find a group of people in the months of demons. No one could offend the Dragon Clan's Yin and harm the Dragon Clan without being punished. Just when the whole cave was filled with sadness, a strange sound stunned the 7 Dragon Kings. Crispy hi, How familiar this sound was. How clear it was. The 7 Dragon Kings were all stunned at the same time, because they were surprised to find that this sound actually came from Nian Bing's mouth. Previously, because they were too sad, they didn't notice that there was a layer of faint gray air flowing from the huge wound on Nian Bing's chest. The air floated gently around the wound, and Nian Bing's body didn't bleed anymore. Crispy high, crispy high. The strange sound sounded again. This time, the 7 Dragon Kings, who were focused, heard it at the same time. When the sound appeared, Bing's lips buzzed. The 7 Dragon Kings looked at each other. The Dragon King Demanteti, who was almost in a coma because of the loss of her child, suddenly woke up. "Child, my child, where is it?" "Crispy high, crispy high." The 7 Dragon Kings came to Nian Bing almost at the same time. Through the exploration of psychic power, they found a strange scene at the same time. Nian Bing's body was undergoing changes, unusual and wonderful changes. Her skin, which had become old because of excessive loss of vitality, was slowly recovering its luster under an unknown energy, and her damaged internal organs were growing by themselves under the effect of the strange energy. The wound on her chest was slowly healing. Not only the skin and meridians, even the bones were gradually recovering. "What's going on?" The Fire Dragon King Garamandes asked the Light Dragon King Demanteti, who was the best at healing. Demanteti's eyes were full of disappointment because she didn't find her child in the broken eggshell around her. She took a deep breath, recovered her consciousness, and barely calmed her heart. She squatted down and carefully observed Nian Bing's guess. Suddenly, she exclaimed, "No, this is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. He's obviously dead." Garamandes' heartbeat quickened a few beats and hurriedly asked, "Demanteti, can you say it clearly? What's impossible? How is Nian Bing's situation now?" "Impossible, impossible." Demanteti stared blankly at Nian Bing. "You all know what kind of situation he is in. He couldn't be any worse. He couldn't be any more dead. But just now, I suddenly sensed that there was still a trace of life left in his broken heart. How is this possible? Although this trace of life is extremely weak, but this trace of life is the seed of his life. It could be said that because of the existence of this trace of life, he hung on to his last breath and didn't really die. Moreover, his body's current situation is very strange. You all saw it. His body is miraculously recovering. This kind of recovery that can be seen with the naked eye can only be achieved by the light element forbidden spell of the 11th step, Angel's Eye. But we didn't cast any magic to save him. Could it be that he has some kind of miraculous treasure on him? The most strange thing is that not only his body is gradually recovering, even the life force he lost with the curse is gradually recovering. And this life force doesn't seem to belong to him. However, this life force is assimilating his life force, causing his life force to appear from nothing. Garamandes said, Then, can he come back to life? If this goes on, can he come back to life? What should we do?" The thing he was most concerned about was Nian Bing's life. Demanteti shook her head and said, "I don't know. Because I have never encountered such a situation before, I can't judge his current situation at all. Right now, we can't do anything. We can only continue to wait and see how his body develops. Since he still has life force, as long as his brain can recover, then there is a possibility that he can come back to life. But I can't be sure how he will become after he comes back to life. After all, the previous injury is too deep. His body has already lost the control of his brain. It is very possible that his life force can be recovered, but he will sleep forever." Garamandes smiled. "That's enough. This is enough. As long as he can recover his life force, I will always keep him by my side. He is my brother. I won't let anyone hurt him.